13 years ago, at the age of 9, the Beastkin mercenaries formed a bond that transcended mere colleagues. At the time, Shiis and Ryus were only 7 years old. Stepping up as the eldest, Shiis held out his hands to the younger children and raised them himself. Shiis diligently trained the younger Beastkin, teaching them how to fight and protect themselves against their enemies. As they slept soundly together, they recognized Shiis not just as their protector, but as a true brother. He ultimately became the guiding force in their lives, serving as both their father and their king. The young Beastkin eagerly devoured their meals, growing stronger under Shiis' watchful eye. While the others rested peacefully, the fox Beastkin tirelessly calculated their finances late into the night. Witnessing this unwavering dedication, the fox firmly decided to stay by Shiis' side forever. As the years passed, some of the children Shiis raised eventually grew up and settled down elsewhere. The remaining Beastkin declared their desire to stay with Shiis, confident that their childhood bond would eventually reunite them all. They eagerly pledged to fight alongside him to protect the border, though some playfully admitted they stayed just to meet girls. Exasperated by their ulterior motives, Shiis sighed heavily before someone chimed in about wanting a nice meal. Following their commitment, the Lord of Damshkasa officially hired the group as a mercenary company. Staring resolutely over his teacup, the fox Beastkin vowed never to leave in order to protect their deeply important bond. Smiling warmly, he acknowledged keeping his past hidden for a fresh start, while noting that some bonds occasionally need cutting. Looking at the fox Beastkin with a gentle smile, she realized he was genuinely worried about her. Touched by his unexpected words, she listened carefully as he advised her to deeply treasure any new bonds that intertwine with her life. Reflecting on these newfound connections, she decided she should send another letter to Lexi and Hensel. As Ronia smiled radiantly, the fox Beastkin let out a soft, affectionate sigh while resting his head on his hand. The Beastkin explained that the townspeople feared them due to a bloody war 13 years ago where humans killed many Beastkin. Realizing the town's avoidance stemmed from this mutual history, he noted that Shiis and Ryus often complain about lacking a proper place to eat. He explained they gave up hiring cooks after applicants quit upon discovering they were Beastkin, prompting Ronia to suggest trying again with their wealth. The fox lamented that his little brother handles chores but possesses absolutely terrible culinary skills despite claiming to study at city restaurants. He confessed they sometimes starved and craved delicious meals, which made finding Ronia's store a massive relief for them. Ronia felt cornered into cooking for them, but the fox cheerfully justified their generous tips as an apology for scaring away her other customers. Flashing a charming, fanged smile, the fox Beastkin firmly insisted that Ronia accept their financial gratitude. Looking deeply into her blushing face, he gently urged Ronia to truly treasure her friends from that moment forward. Overjoyed by the connection, she eagerly decided to tell her grandfather about her wonderful new friend the next time they met. Suddenly, Ronia spun around in alarm as a strange, unexpected presence manifested directly behind her. Realizing she was too distracted by the fluffy Beastkin, Ronia panicked because she forgot to dismiss the little spirits who usually helped her bake. Staring bluntly ahead, the fox Beastkin notes the dense plant smell originating from the numerous shy lotus spirits that just materialized in the shop. Panicking slightly, Ronia urgently warns Mr. Senna to be incredibly gentle as he reaches toward the fragile lotus spirits. Seeing the tiny creature tremble in absolute fear, Senna instantly pulls his hand back and assures them he won't touch their fluffy bodies. Swarming the shop with vibrant energy, the adorable spirits eagerly help with cleaning in exchange for sweet treats and fresh barivas. Smirking at their timid nature, Senna wonders aloud why such incredibly shy magical spirits would willingly approach humans. Smiling warmly at her fluffy companions, Ronia playfully guesses the little creatures simply share Mr. Senna's massive sweet tooth. Gripping her apron nervously, Ronia wrestles with the overwhelming urge to share her past while desperately keeping her noble lineage a strict secret. Fearing immediate exposure, she realizes that explaining her advanced magical contract with the lotuses would instantly reveal her aristocratic background. Breaking the tense silence, Senna casually asks if Chai's already gossiped about his rampant habit of biting raw sugar cubes. Beaming with absolute confidence, Ronia eagerly offers her elite baking skills as the fox crunches on sweets to survive writing tedious mercenary reports. Recalling their grueling past, Senna heavily suggests baking a rich chocolate cake for their selfless boss who always surrendered his own treats to the children. Lighting up with sheer inspiration, Ronia cheerfully agrees that a decadent chocolate dessert paired with rich coffee is the ultimate combination. Mentally cataloging their specific tastes, Ronia confidently plans a meat dish for Shiis while puzzling over reijou-wa's mysterious preferences. Stunned by the unexpected revelation, Ronia learns from a teasing Senna that the aloof reijou actually craves sheer attention far more than any delicious meal. Blushing furiously at the thought of publicly pampering reijou, Ronia gets relentlessly teased by Senna about their previous intimate frolicking. Panicking internally, the flustered baker realizes she desperately needs time to mentally prepare before displaying such embarrassing affection in front of the intimidating mercenary crew. Startled by a sudden metallic clang, Ronia gasps in pure shock as the towering Shiis and his formidable crew abruptly barge into the quiet shop. Stalking into the room with heavy steps, the imposing mercenaries casually greet Senna while a bewildered Ronia rushes to welcome them. Springing into action, the eager baker instantly tempts the hungry warriors with her mouth-watering daily special of fresh Bariva cheesecake. Wagging their tails in sheer predatory excitement, the massive carnivores eagerly shout out their hearty orders for sizzling bacon and giant steaks. Nodding with smooth professionalism, Ronia recommends the savory hamburg to the stoic lion boss while Senna calmly orders an egg sandwich and another lot. Unleashing her culinary magic, Ronia proudly serves up a massive, glorious feast of perfectly grilled meats and stacked artisan sandwiches. Approaching the aloof Beastkin carefully, Ronia nervously offers the cheesecake to reijou while Senna whispers a secret message to their towering boss. Sweating under the intense gaze of the massive lion, Ronia wildly wonders if she is finally about to be asked to physically touch his majestic mane. Pivoting smoothly, she gracefully presents a decadent fondant au chocolate to the intimidating boss, promising it pairs perfectly with dark coffee. Taken utterly by surprise, the fierce lion softens his intense gaze and quietly accepts the sweet chocolate offering. Glowing with absolute joy, Ronia watches the fearsome mercenaries enjoy their meal, deeply moved that their hard-won happiness is finally rubbing off on her. Swaying their tails in pure blissful delight, the fearsome warriors devour the cake as Ronia fervently hopes they will always find comfort in her tiny shop. Descending with majestic feathered wings, the stunning spirit Heroine officially gifts Ronia several plump gao creatures to feed her ravenous Beastkin guests. Brushing off the forest spirit's gentle worries, a beaming Ronia happily plots to grill the fresh gao into sizzling chicken-style steaks for her favorite mercenary group. Ronia warmly asks her spirits to reassure the lotuses that the Beastkin mercenaries are actually good people despite rumors of vulgarity. A sharp eye peers closely from the shadows to quietly acknowledge the situation. Ronia reflects on the shop's powerful magical barrier, desperately hoping she never actually needs to activate it to chase targeted people away. Pulling a hidden letter from her drawer, Ronia hands it to the majestic Heroine to assure her friends she is adapting well to her new life. She humbly asks the avian spirit to deliver the vague letters to Lexi and Hansel at San Crisanti Academy without revealing her location. Flashing a dangerous smile, Heroine fiercely demands permission to use his full power to retaliate if her hostile brother ever confronts him. As Heroine takes to the skies in a swift whoosh, Ronia desperately hopes he never actually crosses paths with her dangerous brother. The shop bell chimes cheerfully as an early morning customer steps inside to ask if the cafe is open. Smiling brightly amidst a spread of delicious pastries, Ronia warmly welcomes her guests to Café Mattari. Senna silently watches Ronia work, musing over his mysterious new human friend whom he barely knows anything about. Appearing in his human form to avoid frightening the customers, Senna wonders about Ronia's hidden origins as she greets him. He casually explains that his squad retreated after encountering a rival mercenary group near the border the previous night. Shocked by his chaotic lifestyle, Ronia listens as Senna admits he left his exhausted comrades sleeping to avoid causing unnecessary trouble. Recognizing her genuine concern despite human prejudice against Beastkin, Senna happily promises to lend her his favorite detective novels. Senna privately notes Ronia's total lack of the scent of criminal malice, deeply surprised that even cautious spirits freely visit her shop. Chuckling at the highly cautious spirits, Ronia promises Senna that they will gradually realize he is a genuinely good person. Watching her warm and accepting smile, Senna silently admits that he is carefully observing Ronia as well. Senna confidently trusts his older brother's sharp judgment, knowing the observant Shiis immediately grew fond of Ronia on their very first visit. Despite Shiis' notoriously free-willed nature, the slightly dejected Senna actively schemes to set his brother up with this remarkable human woman. Senna's quiet contemplation abruptly shatters as loud footsteps violently kick open the cafe door with a deafening bang. Ronia gasps and Senna groans in disgust as the remarkably rude intruders stomp heavily across the pristine shop floor. Reeking horribly of dirt and blood, the rival mercenaries eagerly identify Ronia as the rumor's subject while she bravely steps forward to welcome them. The vulgar men aggressively demand alcohol while violently snickering at Ronia, who politely offers them coffee or juice instead. Dropping her smile entirely, Ronia sternly warns the troubling customers to refrain from inconveniencing others or face immediate eviction. Unfazed by her calm 10-second countdown, the arrogant thugs mock Senna and eagerly threaten to play with the defenseless girl. The countdown hits absolute zero as the grinning intruders boldly declare that Ronia will serve as their twisted compensation. Whispering a firm magical command, Ronia targets her spell to immediately lead astray those who dare distort her clean sanctuary. With a sharp, resounding snap of her fingers, she completely prohibits their entry and leaves the shocked mercenaries reeling. A tremendous magical whoosh forcefully blasts the thugs out the door, proving Ronia undeniably mastered advanced magic at an elite academy. As the heavy door securely thuds shut behind the ejected men, Ronia calmly turns back to effortlessly offer the stunned Senna a fresh lot. A man asks Ronia why she came to this border town to open a cafe, noting that magic users easily find work elsewhere. She calmly replies that she just wants to relax, living up to her shop's name. He realizes she relies on her own power for protection, and she warmly invites him to feel free to relax. The Fox Beast man scolds Ronia for being too naive towards customers, revealing she only intervened because Mr. Senna was involved. He eagerly anticipates solving the mystery of her past while happily chomping on food to mask the scent the previous men left behind. The other beastmen are furious that mercenaries tried to start a fight, but the fox wonders if he'll uncover her secrets before she reveals them. He confidently decides that figuring out her identity will be a lot of fun either way. A white-haired beastman leaps across rooftops, expressing his deep hatred for the city and the people who despise them. He remembers the fearful, disgusted townsfolk who warned others to stay away from the beastman. His mind shifts to Ronia, picturing her warm, gentle presence surrounded by fluffy spirits and sweets. Ronia happily finishes making mini chocolate cakes and mousses, knowing her female customers will love the smaller portions. She gently shoos away a mourning spider, telling the panicked little spirits that it's actually a sign of good luck. Meanwhile, the white-haired beastman finds a dropped item in the grass, wondering if their luck is finally turning. Discovering it's a ruby, he swiftly dashes back toward the usual store, eager to use it to pay Ronia today. Approaching Café Mattari, he realizes how special the shop is to him but wonders if Ronia would even want an accessory made from the jewel. Unsure if she's like other women who love jewels, he resolves to just ask her directly. His heart pounds violently as he panics over how to act alone around her, right as nearby townswomen spot him. He feels disgusted hearing the women gossip about the violent mercenaries, contrasting their current fear with how they fawned over his human form. Inside, the townsfolk warn Ronia about the chaotic mercenaries, but she warmly defends the beastmen as good people. He stares at Ronia through the window, completely bewildered by how she welcomes them and even cooks steak for them despite knowing what they are. Despite easily talking to other women, he remains utterly clueless about how to act in front of her. Overhearing the women ask if Ronia likes any beastmen, he realizes he's terrified of her eventually hating him like the rest of the town does. To his sheer shock and delight, Ronia actually praises him as charming and cool, sending his emotions into overdrive. The gossiping women warn her that beastmen are impossible to get close to and might lose control of their wild instincts. He confidently pushes the door open, stepping inside just as Ronia firmly declares she isn't afraid of them because they are good people. As the customers leave, Ronia offers him a drink, and the fox beastman teases her about wanting to be treated like a lady. Flustered, Ronia is suddenly approached by the white-haired beastman reijou-wa, who swiftly closes the distance. Staring intensely, he asks if he can lick her, demanding she gently offer him her hand. He eagerly licks and nuzzles her hand, leaving Ronia blushing wildly as she finds the beastly affection incredibly cute. Though she weakly protests, reijou-wa teasingly points out that she wanted to touch him and her eyes are completely fixated on his swaying tail. Flirting shamelessly, the fox Beastkin admits he likes people with good intentions and gently offers the blushing Ronia a chance to touch his fluffy fur. A sudden clang echoes through the room as someone reflects on their surprisingly tender feelings, secretly admitting that this profound warmth makes them want to kindly grant their companions anything they desire. Piercing through the quiet moment, The intense gaze of the dark-haired Beastkin locks onto the scene as he silently rests his chin and watches the ongoing interaction with a heavy presence. Breaking the tense silence, a spiky-haired Beastkin playfully bumps into his stoic leader, loudly demanding to know what is completely distracting the usually focused Shiis. Ignoring the playful jab, the serious Shiis quickly orders Chais to find a seat first while a flustered Ronia stammers a welcome and desperately thinks she should escape to do the dishes. Reaching out with a massive hand, Shiis affectionately ruffles the head of a smaller Beastkin who bristles with mild irritation at being treated like an absolute child. Sulking over the patronizing head pats, the irritated companion mutters that he has grown significantly since they first met, yet he resigns himself to the fact that his leader will always see him as a kid. Watching Ronia's lingering embarrassment, a predatory gaze fixates entirely on her flustered expression, fighting the sudden and feral urge to step in and lick her even more. Flashing a charming smile, the smooth snow leopard reijou-wa-mattari-wo smoothly asks for another cup of juice while wistfully confessing that discovering this shop completely erased his dark past. Preparing for a massive feast, Ronia eagerly anticipates serving the fresh gao steaks to her hungry beastmen guests as lunchtime rapidly approaches. Tasting her sizzling culinary masterpiece, Ronia gleefully declares the rich combination of garlic, honey, and red wine sauce absolutely perfect, hoping this bold new flavor profile will thoroughly impress the mercenaries. Emerging with the glorious gao steaks, Ronia is instantly ambushed by an incredibly happy reijou-wa-mattari-wo who drops his usual guard to fiercely rub against her in full guardian mode. Completely overwhelmed by the sudden affectionate assault, a crimson-faced Ronia desperately prays she isn't making a ridiculous expression while frantically wondering why the aloof warrior suddenly wants to be so heavily spoiled. Politely declining their loud invitations to eat together, Ronia tries to maintain her professional distance, but her heart races nervously as she realizes the imposing Shiis is still staring intensely directly at her. Battling her own overwhelming desires, Ronia mentally screams at herself not to unprofessionally fawn over her incredibly cute customers, burning with intense jealousy that Shiis got to pet their fluffy heads earlier. Marveling at the leopard's sly feline cuteness, the mercenaries loudly joke about his strategic use of gap mo before smoothly stepping up to the counter to offer a unique payment for their massive lunch bill. Startled by the extravagant payment, Ronia stares in sheer disbelief as the mercenaries casually drop a massive ruby on the counter, making her feel intensely guilty over the ridiculous overpayment. Noting her complete lack of jewelry, a smooth-talking Beastkin points out she only wears a single ring and casually asks what kind of accessory she truly desires, causing Ronia to internalize a panicked scream over his natural flirting. Recalling a recent group of cute girls who visited the shop, Ronia remembers them eagerly discussing new boutique hairpins to attract the unbetrothed crown prince. Snapped back to reality, Ronia is caught off guard when the conversation shifts to what kind of person she personally wants to marry, humbly deflecting that even catching a mere glimpse of the crown prince would be difficult. A painful memory suddenly flashes through her mind, projecting the smiling face of a blonde nobleman as the haunting name Schneider echoes bitterly in her thoughts. Vigorously shaking her head to banish the lingering ghosts of her past, Ronia forcefully reminds herself that she broke up with him and softly declares there is absolutely no accessory she truly wants right now. Refusing to take no for an answer, the determined leopard deploys his ultimate weapon by hitting her with an impossibly cute kitty-eye stare, insisting on showering her with presents to repay her profound kindness. Pushed past his absolute breaking point, the jealous wolf Chais violently erupts with a ferocious growl, fiercely protesting the blatant injustice that only reijou-wa-mattari-wo gets to happily play with the beloved manager. Lunging forward in a jealous fit, Chais aggressively squishes Ronia's soft cheeks with his massive paw pads, loudly demanding to know why the leopard gets endless affection while he is forced to hold back. Before the chaotic squishing can escalate, an earth-shattering roar detonates through the small cafe as the furious lion Shiis unleashes his terrifying dominance to instantly freeze the rowdy mercenaries. Restoring absolute order, Shiis commands his unruly subordinates to head back immediately and ruthlessly drags the protesting reijou-wa-mattari-wo out the door while the terrified troublemakers hastily thank Ronia for the food. With the terrifying echo of the roar still hanging in the air, a trembling Ronia admits she completely lost the courage to approach the lion, but the sly fox Senna smoothly orders coffee and chocolate fondant to set her up alone with the fearsome boss. Mustering her courage as she serves the rich dessert, Ronia carefully approaches the solitary lion and politely asks to learn more about his history, genuinely curious about the oldest and most formidable beastman in the group. Revealing he is only 24, The imposing Shiis listens quietly as the 16-year-old manager praises him for bravely raising the orphan children during the tragic war, realizing the terrifying boss took on massive burdens at a shockingly young age. Revealing his heritage, Shiis explains he was born to a human father and a Beastkin mother, and he proudly passed his Night Father's training down to Senna and the others. Ronia curiously asks if his father and the Fief Lord were acquaintances while marveling at how incredibly soft and fluffy Mr. Shiis' dark fur is. Shiis explains the Fief Lord was a commander during the war, and after fighting alongside him, the brave lord made a name for himself and received a Baron title. Ronia realizes this deep history ties into the mercenary squad, and Shiis confirms his father retired from knighthood strictly to protect this town as its security worsened. As Ronia affectionately rubs his thick fur, she laughs brightly and happily exclaims that it tickles. Shiis fiercely declares his desire to stop the ongoing threats at their core to ensure his friends in his border hometown never face danger again. Shiis warmly grasps her hand and promises to support her while noting her warm touch, but Ronia playfully tells the massive Beastkin to speak for his own small hands instead. Ronia bows and deeply thanks him, joyfully reflecting on what a wonderful day it was filled with comforting white, blue, and black fluff. Back in her room, Ronia admires a beautiful ruby and compares its fiery core to Shiis' hidden passionate heart, while a secret observer confidently resolves to take his time to seduce her. Pausing thoughtfully in the quiet room, Ronia deeply considers the strong, undeniable flame she truly felt within him after their conversation. Stripping down after a long day of exhausting work, Ronia happily declares that a peaceful bath time is absolute bliss. Slipping into the soothing water, she eagerly opens the detective novel Senna lent to her, immediately noting that it is really interesting. As the mystery deepens and her immersion rapidly increases, Ronia hastily casts protective magic on the book so it won't get wet. She thoroughly enjoys the thrilling, suspenseful experience of unraveling the complex mystery alongside the story's brave protagonist. Wanting to finish the tale quickly but unable to read during work, she stays submerged too long and sneezes, realizing the bath water has gotten completely cold. Later, Ronia decides to stop writing in her journal for the night, amusingly noting that her detailed accounts of the beastmen make it look more like a ledger. She carefully documents how Reijou claimed the counter as his regular seat while Shiis suddenly developed a keen interest in the Roto spirits. Shiis curiously asks if the forest spirits possess delicious liquor, while a disappointed Senna notes the Rotos never seem to appear when the mercenaries visit. Twirling her pen, Ronia peacefully finishes her daily reflections and securely closes the journal before drifting into a comfortable sleep. The next morning, the tiny Roto spirits comically flail and blow air to chase a butterfly out of the shop, prompting Ronia to guess they are fiercely imitating Lachlian. A loud sneeze violently interrupts her morning, forcing her to lean heavily against the banister as she weakly insists she is perfectly fine to prepare for the day. Walking down the wooden stairs, Ronia struggles with feeling far more overwhelmed than usual just as she foolishly thought she was getting used to the business. Suddenly, an intense wave of dizzying vertigo completely overtakes her, leaving her swaying unsteadily on her feet as sickness takes hold. Greeting the Beastkin, they instantly notice her quiet voice and unusual smile, correctly guessing she has been feeling under the weather since morning. Trying to lightly brush off their concern, Ronia playfully blames Senna's interesting book for keeping her in the bath too long, absurdly insisting she rarely gets sick. Hearing her violently racing heartbeat, the worried Beastkin firmly order Ronia to get some sleep, generously promising to clean up the empty shop themselves. Staring up at the towering lion Beastkin, Ronia is deeply moved by their fierce, protective kindness and finally relents to go rest up. Ronia collapses weakly into her soft bed as a gentle tap sounds nearby, dreadfully feeling her dangerous fever rapidly beginning to rise. Lying helplessly in the dark, her entire view violently spins out of control as she desperately wonders if the sickening vertigo is solely because she is sick. As her consciousness heavily fades to black, a terrifying thought paralyzes her with the fear that she might never wake up again, just like in her previous life. Lying weakly in bed, a feverish Ronia overhears the beastmen bickering outside, with someone scolding Reijou and Shiis to run errands instead of wasting their energy. A sudden, loud crash jolts her awake, leaving her flushed and staring blankly at the ceiling. The beastmen recall the day Ronia fell ill, noting how they roughly cleaned the shop in her stead and waited until she finally woke up before heading back. Seeing that Ronia was still in immense pain even after resting, the group firmly decided she needed another day off, ordering Senna to help nurse her tomorrow. Relaxing in their quarters, the lion beastman bluntly blames the fox, Senna, for making their precious reijou sick, calling his previous actions utterly absurd. Senna deflects the blame by pointing out her popularity with the townspeople, but the others insist he must take responsibility and care for her since she lives entirely alone. Someone suggests the boss should go instead, remembering how exceptionally well he cared for the 107 children in the past, only to find the massive beastman fast asleep. Defensively stating he just isn't the right person for the job, Senna is immediately interrupted when another beastman volunteers, prompting a shocked reaction from the fox. The next morning, a disguised Senna walks through the bustling town in his human form, admitting that he was the one who ultimately ended up nursing Ronia. Spotting a customer with a takeaway cup from Café Mattari, he realizes his boss and Shiis totally pushed the task onto him while still craving her morning coffee. Reaching the cafe, he sighs in immense relief upon seeing the closed sign, momentarily confused about where that takeaway cup actually came from. Opening the door, he is shocked to find a flushed, sickly Ronia standing there, and he immediately scolds her for not resting in bed. Taking in the lingering scent of sweets and flowers, he questions if she even understands the concept of resting, leaving her looking completely confused. Ronia guiltily explains she brewed coffee out of gratitude for her visitors, prompting an exasperated Senna to insist on coming inside to nurse her properly. The little Roto spirits aggressively guard the doorway with pounding hearts, making Senna awkwardly ask if there's a specific reason she doesn't want him inside. Ronia politely assures him that the shy spirits are already taking great care of her, making Senna secretly wonder if she simply doesn't trust a male acquaintance yet. She explains that a full day's rest and the medicine the spirits are currently grinding will cure her, but Senna finds the excuse incredibly flimsy. Deciding to take charge, he swiftly steps close to her, declaring that he will direct any visitors away so she can rest before her fever worsens. Without hesitation, he effortlessly lifts her into his arms, ignoring her flustered apologies about showing him such a disheveled appearance. Carrying her up the stairs, he realizes she wasn't actually on guard against him being a beastman, but was simply embarrassed by her messy state. They finally enter her room to the horrified shrieks of the overprotective spirits, though Senna secretly feels somewhat relieved to have her securely in bed. Staring down the shivering little spirits, the disguised beastman bluntly tells them they need to get used to his presence already. Softening his approach, he crouches down to their level and proposes a truce, gently suggesting they all work together to nurse Ronia back to health. The spirits enthusiastically agree to the compromise, taking charge of the medicine while Senna takes responsibility for keeping bothersome visitors away. Watching the heartwarming interaction, Ronia giggles softly and points out that the protective spirits have officially decided he is a good person. Senna gently instructs her to lie down and rest, watching closely as the tiny spirit heaves the freshly prepared medicine over to the bed. Silence briefly settles over the cozy bedroom as the medicine begins to take its effect, wrapping the weary baker in a much-needed blanket of calm. Ronia notes what a good older brother he is and asks if he feels lonely being away from his own sibling, to which he quietly nods yes. He tenderly slides his hand against her flushed forehead to check her temperature, causing her to flinch and weakly deny her true feelings. Fretting over her slightly disheveled hair, she asks to brush it, sparking a sudden, playful conversation about whether anyone had ever managed to snuggle up and touch Shiis' mane. Gently brushing her golden hair, Senna explains that beastmen inherit their appearance rather than family names, though Ronia wonders about Shiis' knightly lineage. Realizing her formal speech implies a noble background, Senna curiously examines a scent-bound book before the tiny spirits scold him for snooping. Startled when the feverish girl suddenly mutters the name, Schneider, Senna quickly decides to leave her in the spirit's care and retreat downstairs. Pausing at the door, the fox beastman casts a lingering glance back as Ronia softly cries out the mysterious name again. Wondering who this unknown man could be, Senna watches silently as a solitary tear escapes the sleeping girl's closed eyes. Trembling with fierce anger, the protective little spirits buzz furiously at the mere mention of the man who broke their beloved Ronia's heart. Piecing the clues together, Senna coldly deduces that this Schneider must be the cruel man responsible for shattering Ronia's heart. Scurrying quickly to her side, the devoted plant spirits gently brush away her tears while Senna watches the heartbreaking scene unfold. Reflecting on her brave facade, Senna suspects the heavy burden of her hidden grief is the true cause behind her sudden illness. Clenching his sharp claws in frustration, the beastman aggressively wonders what exactly transpired between Ronia and this mysterious man. Bristling with protective fury, Senna mentally warns the wicked man to stay away and never attempt to steal back the girl whose smile he destroyed. Reaching out to gently brush her tear-stained cheek, Senna fiercely vows to show no mercy if that bastard ever dares to hurt her again. Growling deep in his chest, the protective fox realizes his fellow beastmen would erupt into a bloodthirsty rage if they uncovered the truth. Promising to shield her forever, Senna sits bewildered by the complete absence of anger in her scent despite her profound sorrow. Staring softly at her sleeping form, he desperately hopes she weeps out all her lingering sorrow so she can awaken with her radiant smile restored. Slipping into a feverish memory, a young Ronia weakly clutches a stuffed toy while her cold mother viciously berates her for falling ill. Furious over the timing, her callous parents prioritize the king's upcoming banquet over her health, terrified she will tarnish the Gavizera family name. Panting heavily in the suffocating heat of her flashback, the neglected child desperately craves water while completely isolated in her massive bed. Reaching a trembling hand toward the heavy curtains, she hallucinates her old caretaker Ramo shortly after becoming engaged to Schneider. Engulfed by the deafening silence of her dark bedroom, the sick child hugs her toy tight and realizes her parents have completely abandoned her. Remembering her kind former caretaker, the feverish girl's memory shifts to the sudden arrival of a young, dashing Schneider at her bedside. Squeezing her stuffed beastman tight, Ronia warmly remembers how the young nobleman constantly supported her through her relentless studies. Sobbing bitterly among her plush toys, the broken child apologizes to the empty room, thoroughly convinced her illness is a pathetic sign of weakness. Gasping through her sobs, Ronia's fragmented memories reveal a tragic past life where she died pushing herself beyond her physical limits. Breaking through the despair of her isolated memory, a gentle hand suddenly reaches out to comfort the weeping girl. Gazing down with absolute tenderness, a young Schneider graces her with a warm smile as he gently cups her tear-stained cheek. Kneeling faithfully beside her lavish bed, Schneider softly asserts his undeniable right as her fiancé to stay and nurse her back to health. Shocked that he defied the others to tend to her fever, Ronia stares in awe as her fiancé happily insists he could never leave her alone. Locked in a tender and intimate gaze, the two young nobles share a beautifully quiet moment completely isolated from the cruel world outside. Pulling the fragile girl into a fiercely protective embrace, Schneider softly vows to never let her cry again once they become a true family. Tears streaming down her face, Ronia tells Schneider she is afraid they couldn't become family, her heart still heavy with lingering regrets. She reflects on enduring the constraints of noble life by eagerly imagining their future together, until Lady Mizano appeared just like the novel dictated. Smiling through her profound sorrow, she admits she lacked the courage to fight fate alone despite their irreplaceable promise. Finding newfound resolve, Ronia bids him a final farewell and declares she now has the strength to forge ahead on her own. A blinding, ethereal light suddenly violently shatters the darkness of her dreamscape. Within the beautiful, sunlit meadow of her subconscious, Ronia sleeps peacefully surrounded by protective lions and wolves. Waking up in a groggy daze, she confusedly rubs something incredibly squishy and wonders if she always owns such a fluffy towel. Her eyes snap wide open in utter shock as she realizes she is practically cuddling the half-transformed beastman Senna. Surrounded by bouncing roto-spirits, she happily thanks Senna and the magical creatures for diligently watching over her feverish state. Sunlight gently pours through the window as Senna softly asks what kind of intense dream she just experienced. Blinking in total confusion, Ronia admits she cannot remember the long dream and worries she might have talked in her sleep. Gently cupping her cheek, Senna reassures her it is perfectly fine to forget while happily noting that her dangerous fever has finally broken. Flashing a wild, fanged smile, the fluffy wolf playfully insists on whipping up some food for the famished girl. The little roto spirits cheerfully salute as Senna leaves them to keep watch while he warms up a visitor's soup. Ronia deeply thanks the spirit forest for gathering the medicinal ingredients, marveling at how wondrously light her recovering body feels. Downstairs, a group of gossiping townswomen excitedly chatter about the handsome green-haired and white-haired beastmen who visited the shop. Ronia struggles to maintain a polite smile as the women loudly tease her about letting such gorgeous, dangerous men into her home while defenseless. A sudden, chilling memory flashes of a hostile, hooded man aiming a loaded gun directly forward. Tossing in her feverish sleep, Ronia weakly grips Senna's striped sleeve and desperately begs Schneider not to go. Senna looks down in silent bewilderment as a single, heartbreaking tear slips from the sleeping girl's closed eyes. The fiercely loyal roto-spirits angrily buzz and flail around, furious at the mere mention of the person making their beloved manager cry. Gently brushing her hair, Senna deduces that this mysterious Schneider must be the man who broke her heart in the past. The tiny spirits affectionately nuzzle Ronia's tear-stained cheeks while Senna solemnly watches over the deeply troubled girl. He silently realizes that the cheerful shop manager never lets her profound, hidden sadness show when she is fully awake. Senna concludes that her heavily suppressed sorrow must have violently overflowed from the bottom of her heart, triggering her sudden illness. Resting his massive paw near her fragile form, the Beastman silently wonders what truly happened between her and this Schneider. Furrowing his brow, he passionately hopes she quickly forgets the foolish man who dares to rob her of her bright smile. As Ronia's tears absolutely refuse to stop, Senna fiercely vows that he will never forgive the man if he ever tries to hurt her again. Baring his sharp fangs with a low, dangerous growl, Senna knows his brother Shiis will be just as fiercely enraged. Watching her peaceful but sorrowful face, Senna softly promises that his mercenary family will always protect the gentle girl who harbors no angry scent. A gentle, comforting voice echoes through the void, assuring Ronia that her lingering sadness should have finally faded away. In the depths of a feverish nightmare, Ronia shrinks back as her cruel mother furiously berates her for being a disgraceful child. Terrified of losing face at His Majesty's birthday party, the vicious woman completely disregards her daughter's illness and demands to leave her behind. Jolting awake in a pool of sweat, a miserable Ronia realizes she is being haunted by painful fever dreams of her past. Tossing restlessly beneath her sheets, she helplessly drifts back into the stifling memories of her early engagement to Schneider. Deep within the gloomy recollection, a younger, heartbroken Ronia slumps in her dark room and silently gives up on her fate. Staring mournfully out the window, she desperately wishes for the comforting presence of her former caretaker Ramo to soothe her uneasy heart. A shadowy vision of a bowing man flickers into view as she tearfully wonders if anyone ever truly cared for her well-being. Clutching her stuffed toys in sheer misery, the young girl sobs bitterly and apologizes for being such a disgraceful burden. Slipping deeper into the fever, she realizes her fatal habit of pushing past her limits has caused her to collapse in both of her lives. Suddenly, a gentle, soothing hand rests warmly against her burning forehead to chase away the chilling nightmares. The bleak dream gracefully shifts to reveal a bright, smiling Schneider gazing down at her younger self with profound tenderness. Clasping his hands together, the young noble gently reminds her that as her fiancé, he possesses the absolute right to stay by her side. Flashing a charming smile, Schneider firmly dismisses any of her objections and vows to personally nurse her through the fever. Locked in a quiet, intimate moment, the two share a tender gaze that briefly chases away the loneliness of her aristocratic life. Pulling her into a tight, warm embrace, Schneider earnestly promises to become her true family and protect her from shedding any more tears. A single, heartbroken tear slips down Ronia's cheek as she softly rejects the painful illusion of what could have been. Mentally severing her ties, she admits that lingering regrets over their failed family kept her from completely moving on from the Gavizera household. Acknowledging that they both mutually let go of each other when Miss Mizano appeared, she finally accepts the absolute death of her suffocating dreams. Smiling softly through her lingering tears, she gracefully admits she simply lacked the confident strength to fight her tragic destiny entirely alone. Reaching out with newfound resolve, she confidently pulls away from his spectral hand and declares she finally possesses the strength to walk by herself. Bidding a final, peaceful farewell to the memory of her former fiancé, she wholeheartedly releases her suffocating past. An ethereal, brilliant light completely envelopes Ronia as her spirit physically and emotionally unburdens its heavy trauma. Her dark nightmare spectacularly transforms into a vibrant, sunlit paradise filled with the fiercely protective presence of her new beastmen companions. Slowly stirring awake, a dazed Ronia confusingly marvels at the incredibly soft and squishy sensation resting right beside her face. Her eyes snap open in sheer shock as she finds the handsome fox beastman staring intensely back at her from the bedside. Realizing she is tightly gripping a massive, fluffy animal paw, she flusters wildly and stammers Senna's name in total disbelief. Panicking because he was just in human form moments ago, Ronia blushes madly as Senna casually asks if her fever has finally broken. Gazing calmly out the sunlit window, the disguised beastman softly asks the flustered baker what kind of dream she just had. Surrounded by the curious beastmen, Ronia lightly touches her lips in confusion, feeling as though she just woke from a very long dream. Blinking her eyes open, Ronia realizes she feels incredibly refreshed as Senna, still in his wolf form, gently touches her face and assures her the fever won't return if she just lets go of her worries. Mesmerized by his fluffy appearance, Ronia insists on making lunch since it's past time, but Senna absolutely refuses to let her exert herself. Instructing the cheerful little fairies to keep a close watch on her, Senna steps away to warm up some soup for her. Smiling warmly, Ronia silently expresses her deep gratitude to Senna and the forest spirits who thoughtfully provided the ingredients for her soup and medicine. Back at the bustling cafe, Ronia serves cakes to her excited female customers while they excitedly gossip about which handsome beastman took care of her during her illness. As the girls warn her to be more cautious around men while defenseless, the door chimes, prompting Ronia to turn and welcome the next customer with a slightly stiff smile. Her welcoming smile instantly vanishes in shock as a hooded man aims a loaded revolver directly at her face. The hooded intruder coldly warns her not to even think about casting any magic unless she wants a bullet. Raising her hands defensively, Ronia glances at the window and immediately recognizes the armed men outside as the rowdy mercenaries she previously banned from her shop. Keeping his weapon locked on her, the gunman mocks the young manager for acting high and mighty just because she knows a little magic. Holding her hands up, Ronia stares back unimpressed and silently notes that her magical abilities go far beyond just a little. Outside, the frustrated thugs furiously rattle the locked door before yelling at each other to just smash the glass to get inside. Ronia winces as a violent impact strikes the storefront glass with a terrifying shatter. The mercenaries hack furiously at the broken window frames in utter confusion, realizing an invisible magical wall is completely blocking their entry. Furious that these thugs destroyed her windows and now intend to open fire, Ronia glares at the gunman, vowing to protect her precious shop. The hooded man aggressively racks his pistol and steps forward, threatening to shoot her point-blank if she doesn't drop the magical barrier immediately. As the thugs continuously smash against her invisible shield, Ronia rapidly calculates whether to wait out the assault or drop the barrier to launch a counterattack. Before she can finalize her plan, a massive, terrifying roar suddenly erupts from behind the gunman. Ronia gasps in absolute shock, immediately recognizing the towering beastman as reijou-wa. Reijou-wa violently hoists the trembling gunman into the air by his collar, snarling furiously at the thug for daring to wreak havoc in their establishment. Spotting the danger outside, Ronia desperately screams for Shiis and reijou-wa to stay back. Knowing that even mighty beastmen aren't impervious to bullets, Ronia races forward to stop the escalating violence just as gunfire erupts. Shifting into his massive lion form, Shiis effortlessly blitzes past the gunfire and violently tackles a mercenary to the ground. Ronia cries out his name in shock as the beastman's massive clawed hand effortlessly snaps the mercenary's pistol into scrap metal. Reverting to his normal size, Shiis leans in closely to ensure Ronia isn't injured, expressing deep relief as she nervously asks about the others. Outside the shop, Senna and the rest of the beastmen ruthlessly pummel the remaining mercenaries with a flurry of devastating kicks and punches. The battered mercenaries turn and sprint for their lives as the furious beastmen roar ferociously, warning them never to step foot near the shop again. Stepping out of the shop completely dumbfounded, Ronia frantically scans the imposing group and asks if anyone was shot or injured in the brawl. The beastmen immediately burst into hearty laughter, thoroughly amused by her concern as they proudly declare they weren't touched even once. Senna steps forward to reassure her that no one is injured, casually noting that those cowards never stood a chance of actually landing a hit on them. A furious beastman growls at the mess made in the shop, though Ronia calmly reassures them she can fix it with magic while another helper laments forgetting to make the culprits pay. Ronia gracefully raises her hand, channeling her magic through a glowing ring to begin the restoration process. With a powerful swoosh of magical energy, the shattered glass and debris lift into the air as her beastman companions watch in awe. The shop is completely restored to good as new, prompting the amazed lion and wolf beastmen to praise their capable milady. The massive lion beastman gently pats Ronia's head, asking with warm concern if she is feeling all right now. Blushing happily, she thanks them for their help while the panther beastman bows, apologizing for the worry and expressing relief that her cold has subsided. Ronia feels warm and fuzzy receiving eager requests for her cooking, smiling as the boisterous beastmen chant for steak and beg her to whip something up. Expertly handling her knife and pan, Ronia cheerfully prepares the requested steak dinner for her hungry staff. The wolf beastman devours the perfectly cooked steak with ravenous, huffing intensity. Settling down with a book, Ronia is eagerly invited by the beastmen to kick back and relax with them at the table. Smiling warmly, she decides to take them up on their kind offer and enjoy herself alongside her companions. Sitting among them, Ronia finds herself overwhelmed by a double barrage of pure fluffiness. The peaceful, cozy atmosphere settles over the cafe. Hastily hiding a silly grin behind her book, she struggles to focus on reading while completely engulfed by the adorable, fluffy tales of the beastmen. The beastmen stretch and relax contentedly on the sofa after finishing their heavy meal. This is Café Mattari, a blissful place run with the help of adorable little spirits where everyone can enjoy themselves to the fullest. Business is thriving thanks to the warm support of lively customers and the kind, wonderful beastmen who work there. Ronia reflects with deep gladness that she has created a haven where everyone can relax for many days to come. Meanwhile, sometime back at the Grand Academy dormitories, a student urgently searches for Schneider. Whispering students part nervously for Lord Hansel, terrified by the murderous look on the usually friendly nobleman's face as he storms the halls. The gossiping crowd notes that Hansel's anger is justified, as he was completely kept in the dark about a massive recent scandal. Hansel had been away helping with his father's work and only just discovered that Prince Schneider annulled his engagement to Ronia, forcing her to leave the academy. Confronting Schneider in his quarters, a furious Hansel cuts off the prince's excuses, coldly stating he thought he knew him well. Refusing to stop fooling around, Hansel aggressively rejects the accusation that Lady Ronia ever bullied Lady Mizano. Schneider desperately defends his actions, claiming that multiple other ladies confessed to acting under Ronia's orders, not just Mizano. Hansel demands to know if Ronia actually confessed, and upon hearing she denied it, he furiously questions why Schneider didn't believe the woman he was supposed to love. Grabbing Schneider by the collar, Hansel violently smacks him against the wall, enraged that he turned his back on her. With tears of frustration in his eyes, Hansel screams that Schneider completely betrayed Ronia's trust. Schneider barks back that Ronia harassed Mizano out of jealousy and had the gall to deny her wicked deeds, insisting she betrayed him first. Disgusted by the prince's lack of faith, Hansel fiercely declares that a true lover would have protected and supported Ronia regardless of the situation, swearing he would have been her ally. Schneider desperately asks Hansel what happened to Ronia, stammering that the two of them were supposedly so in love. Hansel furiously slams Schneider against the wall, aggressively declaring that he will never share that information with someone like him. Trembling with rage, Hansel demands to know why Schneider is angrier than Ronia was when she didn't show a speck of anger the day he broke off their engagement in the Great Hall. Hansel scoffs that Schneider's love for her must have been tiny if he couldn't be her fairy tale prince, recalling how Ronia simply left with a smile and told Hansel not to overwork himself. As Schneider panics about having no idea where to start looking, Hansel admits he will never sleep soundly until Ronia's safety is confirmed and agrees to help search. Discussing a clothing store Ronia previously ran in Fiason, the southeastern district under the Gavizera family, Hansel agrees to check the location. Schneider concludes that the most plausible answer is that Ronia's grandfather, Ronald, is helping her hide since her parents and older brother treat her so coldly. Realizing he has no other option but to go, Schneider suddenly dashes out the door, leaving a startled Hansel shouting after him. Arriving at a grand estate, Schneider wonders if Ronald will be willing to reveal Ronia's location while someone inside pours tea and remarks that everyone makes mistakes when they are young. Ronald coldly hopes Schneider never crosses paths with his granddaughter again and bluntly tells him to continue living life to the fullest with his new lover. Sipping his tea, Ronald flatly refuses to reveal Ronia's location and tells the shitty boy to get out, leaving Schneider quietly relieved that her safety is at least confirmed for now. A few days later in the throne room, the king orders everyone to leave and sternly confronts Schneider about failing to confirm Ronia's safety with his own eyes despite Ronald hiding her. The king scolds Schneider for his lack of seriousness, pointing out that this childish fight caused Ronia to be kicked out of school and go missing. When Schneider foolishly argues that Ronia was at fault, the furious king snaps back that loved ones should never be treated that way, especially by breaking off an engagement in front of the whole school. Deeply ashamed of his relative, the king reminds Schneider that he was the one who relentlessly pushed to formalize their verbal marriage contract 7 years ago. Clenching his fist, Schneider realizes he cannot object to the king's words, listening intensely as his uncle warns that another man will steal Ronia away if he doesn't hurry. The king sighs heavily and asks if Schneider truly never noticed that many men have their eyes set on Ronia as a potential marriage candidate. Calling him an idiot, the king explains that only a fool would give up such an amazing girl, noting that Ronia never allowed anyone but Schneider into her life for the past 7 years despite having many secret admirers. The king points out that Schneider never felt jealous or insecure because Ronia always kept her guard up and only ever thought of him, keeping other men's unrequited love at bay. Grabbing Schneider by the collar, the king accuses him of being cruel for abandoning Ronia to her unforgiving household when he understood her family situation better than anyone. The king softly admits that deciding on a fated partner at such a young age doesn't always lead to a positive relationship, noting she would probably be much happier if a better man found her. Before dismissing him, the king commands Schneider to sincerely apologize to Ronald and return only when he has finally discovered Ronia's location. As heavy footsteps echo outside, the king sighs that the king of Aladdin was also looking forward to the marriage and dismisses Schneider just as the royal guest arrives. Storming away in absolute frustration, Schneider grits his teeth and furiously asks what the hell is going on and why everyone is taking Ronia's side. He violently slams his fist against the wall, cursing out loud because Ronia was supposed to be the evil one in this situation. Exhaling sharply, he tries to convince himself that it doesn't matter anymore, ignoring the lingering voices blaming Ronia while the Gavizera family continues to make fools of everyone else. Desperate to ensure his own happiness with Mizano, he resolves that he must find Ronia, haunted by the overwhelming weight of their shared memories. A massive mythical bird beast named Lachlan suddenly flutters into the area. Hensel reads a letter from Ronia stating she is fine and not to worry, casually informing someone that she was not at the clothing store. As the tired mythical beast rests its stiff shoulders, Hensel playfully refuses to let the other man read the handwritten letter, teasingly asking if he also delivered one to Lexi, the current queen's niece and Ronia's friend. Hoping to leverage their hard-earned friendship, the men gently ask the shy but kind-hearted Loto fairies if they can reveal Ronia's location. The stubborn fairies cross their tiny arms and refuse to tell Hensel anything, fiercely declaring that Ronia is cutting contact since he is Schneider's friend and didn't even bring a letter for her. Explaining how Ronia's fragile relationships pushed her to the breaking point, a furious Hensel warns Schneider that he will cut him into pieces if he or his cold-hearted brother ever hurt Ronia again. Unfazed by his past with Ronia, Mizano boldly promises to show Schneider a much deeper love than his completely dependent ex-fiancé ever could. Schneider smiles and praises Mizano for being so independent and beautiful, secretly deciding it isn't worth trying to explain how unfeeling Ronia's family truly was. Lexi suddenly marches onto the scene after rushing back over Ronia's letter, glaring fiercely as she announces that they are all here to search for their missing friend. Stomping furiously toward Schneider with her hand raised for a slap, Lexi is abruptly intercepted by Mizano, who fiercely steps up to defend her man and challenges Lexi to a fight. Enraged by the accusations, Lexi aggressively calls out Mizano's lies and insists that it is fundamentally impossible for a sweet girl like Ronia to ever harass anyone. Lexi furiously brands Mizano an unreasonable witch for stealing Ronia's fiancé, prompting Mizano to smirk back and claim that Ronia was actually a deceptive wolf in sheep's clothing all along. Whirling on Schneider, Lexi violently berates the idiot man for letting a witch manipulate him into publicly annulling the engagement, screaming about how much Ronia endured just to escape her cold-blooded family. Lexi remembers a bittersweet moment where Ronia admitted her royal riding lessons were a total lie, playfully suggesting they run away together even though her loyal heart refused to betray Schneider. Tears welling in her eyes, Lexi screams that Ronia truly loved Schneider and willingly endured endless torment in that awful house just so she could faithfully become his wife. Dismissing Mizano's smug request to stop spouting nonsense, Lexi cries out that Ronia only remained an aristocrat because she completely trusted Schneider to protect her. Begging the stupid man to open his eyes to the truth, Lexi savagely shuts down Mizano's excuses by pointing out she still shamelessly seduced a taken man and ripped away Ronia's rightful position. Mizano dangerously warns that she won't forgive any more insults toward Schneider, prompting a fearless Lexi to step up and gladly claim the revenge that Ronia was too kind to take. The air practically crackles with explosive tension as Mizano and Lexi lock into a fierce, hateful glaring contest. Hensel frantically grabs Lexi and pulls her back to de-escalate the brawl, ignoring her thrashing screams that Mizano needs to be severely punished for hurting Ronia. Struggling to keep the peace, Hensel insists they need to focus on finding Ronia by speaking to Mr. Ronald, while Lexi continues to furiously blast Schneider for only pretending to help during his spare time. Looking at Lexi with desperate, pleading eyes, Hensel begs her to accompany him, absolutely certain that Mr. Ronald will reveal Ronia's location if she is there. Schneider tiredly apologizes to Mizano for his childhood friend's unstoppable tantrums, completely ignoring Lexi as she screams one final threat about Ronia's safety before storming off. Letting out a heavy sigh, Schneider turns away from the retreating group and quietly informs Mizano that he also needs to take his leave. He plainly states that he must honor his promise to Hensel and continue searching for Ronia, leaving a bewildered Mizano to bitterly question his lingering attachment. Openly acknowledging his past failures, Schneider quietly admits that he just wants to track down his former fiancée so he can see her one last time. Apologizing for leaving her to walk back to her dorm alone, Schneider promises to make it up to her before turning and sprinting after Hensel. Watching her boyfriend chase after another woman's shadow, Ms. Ano clenches her fists and bitterly wonders why it still feels like she lost to Ronia. Glaring fiercely at the empty path, Ms. Ano vows she won't lose, convincing herself that her own captivating beauty and immense talents prove she is the true winner. The scene violently shifts to the deafening rattle of a horse-drawn carriage as Lexi and Hensel sit in suffocating, angry silence. Still boiling with rage inside the carriage, Lexi snaps at her companions not to look down on her, absolutely certain that she can see through lies and that Mizano is horribly misunderstanding Ronia. Hensel angrily fires back that he is completely sick of Ronia disappointing him, sparking a volatile shouting match over how her so-called protectors ultimately abandoned her. Thrashing against the guards holding her back, Lexi attempts to viciously kick Schneider across the carriage while screaming that his new girlfriend orchestrated everything to systematically destroy Ronia. A desperate companion gasps and tries to justify exposing Ronia's alleged injustices to ensure everyone's safety, insisting it was the only choice despite secretly wanting a peaceful life. A furious Hansel glares as little Lexi tearfully reveals that Ronia's farewell letter expressed relief at leaving the academy to enjoy life, leaving behind only regret that she couldn't say goodbye to her friend. Arriving at a restricted estate, the seekers are politely but firmly denied entry by a guard who refuses to disclose Ronia's location despite their long journey. Lexi breaks down crying on the steps because they cannot find her, prompting a furious Hansel to blame Schneider for the entire mess while their companion advises against resorting to violence. Realizing that only Ronia and her magic mentor have permission to enter the Great Spirit Forest, the group resolves to seek out the legendary mentor who originally signed a contract with Lord Orfidolt. They recall the brilliant magician Grisha, a top graduate and classmate of Ronia's brother, hoping that Lord Orfidolt might grant him the knowledge of Ronia's hidden whereabouts. Discovering that even the spirits refuse to tell the royal magician Grisha her location, the determined group realizes they have no other choice but to personally march to Lord Orfidolt's forest. Learning that Grisha is currently enjoying a rare extended vacation after exhausting work, they accept that tackling the spirit forest themselves is truly their final option. The tension breaks when an outraged Lexi completely loses her temper and violently vows to kill Schneider for ruining everything, forcing her panicked companions to restrain her. Meanwhile, back at the peaceful cafe, one of the beastmen notices Ronia smiling to herself and curiously asks if she is reading an interesting scene in her book. Blushing slightly, Ronia closes her book and admits she is simply overwhelmed with happiness to finally be able to relax in such a welcoming environment. She fondly observes her loyal beastmen companions happily wagging their tails in the quiet afternoon, noting that the empty cafe currently feels like a private sanctuary reserved just for them. Beaming with joy as she serves them a special dandelion root coffee, she graciously accepts their compliments on her healthy appearance and happily pours another cup. From a hidden vantage point, a majestic and ethereal figure watches the former Gavizera noblewoman with relief, glad that the rare contractor who fled the royal capital is faring so well. Flustered by the beastmen's affectionate habit of frolicking to prove their friendship, Ronia shyly asks them to play in moderation since physical contact with the opposite sex is a bit embarrassing. Completely ignoring her protests, the playful lion beastman gently rubs his massive paw against her soft cheek, leaving her blinking in stunned confusion. The peaceful moment shatters when the irritated wolf beastman violently slams his fist onto the table and demands that the others stop teasing her immediately. The hidden watcher narrows his eyes in surprise as the wolf beastman hypocritically demands his own turn to play with Ronia, sending a shock of embarrassment through the young woman. The mystical observer contemplates revealing his long-hidden presence, silently musing that Ronia and the beastmen seem to have completely forgotten they are of opposite genders. Peeking through the window panels, the watcher listens as Ronia reminds the wolf that she hasn't gotten to frolic with him yet, unlike the other beastmen who let her touch their soft fur. Brandishing a grooming tool with a bright and eager smile, Ronia politely asks the grumpy wolf beastman if she can brush his tail. He quickly declines with a sweat drop, but she leans in closer and begs to brush out his stiff tail, pointing out that he is totally wild compared to the other three companions. When the flustered wolf stubbornly refuses, the other beastmen mockingly volunteer to do it, making Ronia sigh and accept that grooming is simply too far out of his comfort zone. Blushing fiercely under their teasing, the proud wolf averts his eyes while his companions relentlessly point out that he actually wouldn't mind getting touched up every day. Ronia covers her mouth and giggles softly at the chaotic scene, finding it endearing how the older beastmen scold the young wolf like parents forcing a child to brush his teeth. The sly panther beastman suddenly leans into Ronia's personal space and boldly asks what her specific type in men is. The massive lion quickly interjects that she must prefer cool guys, sparking a debate where the wolf argues that the lion's height is too intimidating to be her ideal match. Ronia thoughtfully explains that a good personality is her primary consideration, but she quickly flatters the blushing lion by adding that tall and cool guys certainly have their unique charm. As the other beastmen clamor for her attention, Ronia fondly recalls how the calm and accepting lion gently took care of her when she was sick, making him look incredibly cool in her eyes. Frustrated by her wholesome praise, the panther demands to know exactly who she thinks is the coolest, but she playfully dodges the question by offering to fetch him a drink instead. Ronia looks thoughtfully at the four beastmen surrounding her and playfully asks them who they think is the coolest. As the beastmen relax in their human forms as regulars at her shop, she reflects that despite the fearful rumors surrounding their mercenary group, they are actually wonderful people. She notes that Reijou is slender, gorgeous, and prince-like, making him incredibly popular with the ladies. The white feline beastman rapidly flicks his ears and eagerly presses her to reveal who she would date, teasingly reminding her that she previously called Reijou her type. Laughing off the misunderstanding, she clarifies that calling Reijou cool was merely a casual observation, causing the white cat to instantly slump in gloom. She gently explains that she cannot answer even a hypothetical question because she recently had her heart broken and is not looking to date anyone right now. Smiling warmly, she reassures them that while her heart isn't ready for a new romance, she genuinely believes every single one of them is incredibly cool. The wolf beastman silently remarks that she has been reading a lot of romance novels lately. She giggles and adds that his sullen white cat persona makes him look adorable, though he grumpily turns away and rejects her flattery. Gazing at his swishing tail, she desperately suppresses the urge to ruffle his white fur and playfully wonders if acknowledging his cuteness would upset him. Catching the intense stare of the pure black lion, she nervously wonders if he actually wants to be brushed or if this is his silent way of frolicking. Maintaining an absolutely unreadable poker face, the stoic lion simply requests another cup of coffee. Beaming brightly, she eagerly agrees to brew a fresh batch of coffee while praising Shiis as the absolute best fluff. Meanwhile, tiny magical fairies known as rotos float peacefully through the air, emitting soft, gentle chiming sounds. The beastmen suddenly gasp in surprise as one of the little fairies drifts dangerously close to a glowing magic circle, prompting Ronia to cry out for it to stop. Ignoring her plea, the tiny creature leaps directly into the glowing pool of liquid with a tiny splash. The wolf beastman smirks and approaches the fairies, remembering how he playfully threatened to eat them like muscat grapes during their very first meeting. She realizes the fairies were deeply worried about her fever and offers one a strawberry as thanks for their healing medicine, noticing that the tiny creature seems to be communicating something important. Watching the fairy gesture frantically, Ronia tries to decipher its message and guesses that a deer is approaching the shop. Suddenly piecing the clues together, she realizes the fairy means a creature with antlers from the forest, excitedly asking if Orphidolt is on his way. The beastmen clarify if she is referring to the lord of the forest where the rotos live, confirming that Orphidolt is indeed the great spirit's name. As a majestic antlered figure arrives at the window, he indignantly overhears the wolf beastman describing his specially crafted medicine as having an odd, mysterious odor. Ronia smiles warmly at the ethereal spirit, defending him by stating that while she couldn't judge the smell, she knows he personally picked the healing herbs for her. The feline beastman excitedly anticipates meeting a real spirit while demanding that the manager hurry up and bring him some cake. Ronia cheerfully acknowledges the order and promises to serve the cake right away. Outside the shop, the regal spirit approaches the front door and examines the wooden sign dangling from the handle. Noting the closed sign on the door, Orphidolt realizes the beastmen are the only current customers and contemplates whether he should let himself in. Inside, the white feline beastman suddenly turns his head toward the entrance, warning Ronia that he is picking up the same strange scent from earlier. The door violently clangs open as the beastman ferociously lunges toward the entrance, while a shocked Ronia frantically tries to stop him. Pinning the majestic lord of the forest firmly to the floor, the protective beastman glances back at a horrified Ronia and asks if she knows this suspicious man. The feline beastman pins Orphidolt, calling him a rude man for sneaking around the store. Ronia warmly takes Orphidolt's hands to thank him for the herbs, leaving the beastman bewildered as the fox furiously questions why she is dealing with such rude customers. Ronia formally introduces the regal figure as Lord Orphidolt, the great spirit and king of the forest where the Roto fairies reside. She explains that his incredible powers can sprout greenery in arid deserts, making him directly responsible for protecting the world's nature. Sniffing the spirit closely, the feline beastman bluntly notes that he just smells like a clean forest, admitting he expected someone much grander. Orphidolt haughtily defends his human form by claiming he does not look bad when transformed, though the fox beastman simply mocks him as Ronia watches nervously. Emitting a radiant glow, Orphidolt demands respect, but the feline sharply retorts that he only respects his boss while the fox coldly reminds the spirit he was caught peeking. Ronia desperately tries to clear up the misunderstanding by insisting her regulars are great people, but Orphidolt stubbornly expresses his distaste for beasts. Leaning in close, the spirit boldly urges Ronia to close down her store and move to the forest with him. The feline beastman casually remarks that they view their boss as a father and king, prompting Ronia to turn around and realize they have all shifted into their human forms. Now in human form, the dark-haired lion calmly sips coffee and notes that Orphidolt showed no true intention of hurting anyone, which relieves Ronia. Flashing a warm smile, Ronia declines the spirit's offer by stating she has no intention of closing her store yet. Leaning casually against the window, the fox and lion beastmen assert that they are actually there to help protect the store manager. Orphidolt simply lets out a dismissive scoff as he glares back at the smirking beastmen. Shifting his focus, the fox beastman eyes Ronia suspiciously and points out that it is highly unusual for humans to maintain such close ties with spirits and fairies. Cornering her with a sharp gaze, Senna asks where she learned the magic required to contact spirits. Panic sets in as Ronia mentally reviews how she kept her aristocratic background a secret, knowing the advanced magic required for a fairy contract is only taught to nobles. Trembling slightly, she struggles to find an answer, terrified of discussing her family matters while not wanting to betray the beastman's deep trust. Stepping in to save her, Lord Orphidolt calmly announces that he and Ronia are friends bound by a magic contract, causing the fox to flinch in surprise. The fox chuckles, assuming this simply proves Ronia's amazing abilities, while she internally frets that they misunderstand the unbalanced nature of her requests. Pressing further, the fox deduces that her magical skill must come from an exceptional master, prompting Ronia to credit the amazing sorcerer Grisha. The lion beastman's eyes widen in recognition at the mention of Grisha Amethyst, the youngest court sorcerer, while Ronia sighs in relief that she technically told the truth. Smiling brightly, Ronia recalls how Grisha would patiently answer all her questions until she fully understood the complex magic. She explains that Grisha graduated with the best grades in academy history and quickly rose to become the highest-ranking court sorcerer despite being her elder brother's rival. Despite his extremely busy schedule, Grisha always made time for her special lessons, proving that the supposed animosity between them was just a misunderstanding. A flashback shows Ronia nervously confronting Grisha in the library to ask if she was a hindrance, to which he surprisingly admits he was avoiding her for the exact same reason. Ronia explains that Grisha took her to Lord Orphidolt's forest for her magical contract exam, which began in the blink of an eye. She admits she brought handmade sweets to the forest every day to show sincerity, leading the fox to realize she earned the contract through persistent dedication. Lord Orphidolt smiles warmly and reveals that her loyalty greatly impressed him, noting that many humans fail the ancient test by breaking their contracts immediately. A mystical vision illustrates that contracted spirits usually make specific requests to humans, highlighting how rare Ronia's genuine connection is in a world filled with magical beasts. When the Academy's magical contract exam begins, students eagerly present offerings to different spirits in hopes of forming a mutual bond of assistance. Because contracted spirits can casually make requests at any time, many busy nobles find the obligation bothersome and sever their ties the moment the exam finishes. Expressing her gratitude to Orphadolt and the forest residents, she warmly insists on nurturing their bond long after the contract is formed, which deeply pleases the majestic spirit. Noting that her health has fully recovered, Orphadolt gently asks if she would accompany him to the forest to fulfill a special request. The excited beastmen immediately volunteer to tag along, prompting a protective Orphadolt to firmly ask if she can delay the trip until her boisterous customers finally leave for the day. The panther aggressively bristles at the blatant exclusion, while Orphadolt internally laments that his private plan is rapidly falling apart. Smiling brightly, she diffuses the tension by inviting the entire group to join them, leaving the eager beastmen thrilled and the poor forest lord utterly bewildered by the sudden crowd. Resigning himself to the chaos, Orphadolt permits them to follow but sternly warns that he will show absolutely no mercy if they bring any harm to his sacred forest. Summoning a swirling pillar of magic, he explains that the portal will instantly transport them to the forest, a rare privilege granted exclusively because Ronia requested it. As the beastmen eagerly pitch in to clear the tables and speed up their departure, a glaring Orphadolt realizes these rugged mercenaries are familiar regulars at her shop. Watching the unexpected dynamic unfold, the forest lord shifts his strategy and decides to use this sudden group excursion to determine the true nature of these men. Before stepping into the magical gateway, the cautious wolf gently pulls Ronia aside to ask if there are any specific forest dangers they should be wary of. He internally worries about overstepping his boundaries, but his protective instincts flare as he recalls rumors of a human-hating mythical beast that could potentially bring her to tears again. Sensing his deep protective concern, she turns to face him with a soft, appreciative expression and softly calls out his name. She warmly reassures him that the mythical beast, Lacklane, actually opened up to her after she tended his injuries, noting that his current overprotectiveness simply stems from her recent illness. Stunned by her casual friendship with a legendary creature, Senna wonders if she is a master beast tamer, though he figures the beastmen mercenaries will be safe since they respect the forest. Breaking into a bright laugh, she playfully points out the irony of his concern by asking if the term beasts technically applies to his own mercenary crew. The energetic panther immediately crowds around her to excitedly ask about the mythical beast's strength, prompting his annoyed companions to yank him back and demand he stop monopolizing her. Flustered by the sudden physical closeness, Senna abruptly steps back in surprise, causing her to quickly apologize as he demands to know why she retreated. She playfully calls out his hypocrisy, reminding him that he was incredibly clingy while in his fluffy beast form, but his current handsome human appearance makes her too shy to get close. Struck dumb by her flawless logic, the exasperated beastmen desperately remind her that they are the exact same individuals regardless of whether they have fur or human skin. As the lion quietly sighs over her lack of awareness as a human female, Senna accurately deduces that their beloved manager is simply an irredeemable maniac for fluffy things. Nodding in unified agreement at this undeniable truth, the rugged mercenaries gather their bearings and declare it is finally time to set out. Eyeing the swirling magic portal with deep suspicion, they question its safety before ultimately trusting that the powerful spirit's magic will transport them accurately. Observing her interactions, a quiet voice notes that humans are not the only ones drawn to her, recognizing that she remains subconsciously guarded despite her absent-minded nature. Swearing to protect her peaceful sanctuary, the observer reflects that her beauty, intelligence, and immense magical power will inevitably draw unwanted attention from those seeking to claim her. This fierce loyalty stems from profound gratitude, as she was the very first person to offer him a warm meal and a safe haven where he could truly be himself. Catching herself before dropping a specific name, Ronia cheerfully reassures Senna that she has safely guided friends into the spirit forest before, so they have absolutely nothing to fear. Reaffirming his silent vow, the devoted protector watches her smile and promises to defend the peaceful, mundane days she so desperately wishes to maintain against any looming threats. Cementing his resolve to repay the warmth and acceptance she freely gave him, he turns his attention back to the present and quietly calls out to Reijou to follow along. Orphadolt reassures Ronia that taking everyone into the spirit forest will be perfectly fine, initiating the magical transport with a swift motion. A breathtaking, expansive view of the mystical forest unfolds as Orphadolt floats gracefully among the massive trees with his guests. Welcoming them to his domain, Orphadolt appears in his majestic true form, leaving the beastmen staring up in quiet awe. Orphadolt explains that the poppies, the butterfly fairies who help harvest his coffee beans, have completely gone on strike. Realizing this means she will have no other way to procure coffee beans, Ronia anxiously admits this will be a massive problem for her shop. Orphidolt sighs that the fairies refuse to listen even when he reminded them it was for the forest's benefactor, while Ronia kindly offers to guide the sleepy Shiis to a good nap spot. Pointing the way to the poppies, Orphidolt leaves the guiding to Ronia and asks her to take care of everyone while he is gone. Smiling warmly, Senna and Reijou volunteer to help her handle the fairies since they are huge fans of her cafe's lattes. Shiis bluntly decides to join the boss for a nap instead, leaving Ronia unable to refuse his sudden departure. Following behind her, Reijou reflects that it is a wonderful idea to forget their worries and simply relax in such a beautiful environment. Senna quietly agrees, noting that ever since Ronia opened her cafe, their war-hardened expressions have softened considerably. As fairies flutter happily around the oblivious girl, Senna thinks how every action she takes changes them, while she cheerfully suggests visiting the Roto fairies. Staring at the empty forest path, Ronia suddenly notices the quiet isolation. She wonders if the two beastmen got lost or chased an animal, knowing their sharp sense of smell should help them find her easily. Hearing a sudden rustle in the bushes, she assumes the fairies have arrived and excitedly turns to greet them. Her eyes widen in absolute shock as she comes face to face with Grisha, the royal magician, standing alone in the woods. Confused as to why the incredibly busy magician is here without Orphidolt's knowledge, she listens as Grisha abruptly asks her for a favor. She politely asks if he is gathering herbs for a ritual, recalling that castle magicians are frequently called upon for such tasks. Grisha calmly clarifies that he simply took some vacation time to relax and check on the forest condition. Catching herself speaking too formally, she playfully reminds him that taking a break is just as important as loving his magical duties. Their conversation is interrupted as floating, ray-like creatures called raimans suddenly glide down from the sky. One of the massive raimans swoops playfully around Ronia, wrapping her in a gentle breeze as she laughs in delight. She affectionately greets the creature, completely overjoyed that it always comes out to welcome her. Confirming that she is there on Orphidolt's behalf, Grisha calmly asks the Rayman to give them a moment alone. Grisha asks if he can accompany her, revealing that the poppies are actually refusing to do a task he personally requested of them. Still wondering where her beastmen friends vanish to, Ronia agrees and mentions that her companions will easily track her scent later. Grisha smoothly remarks that as someone constantly by the king's side, he naturally knows her engagement was broken and she fled the academy. Before she can explain her new life, he firmly advises her to stay quiet, knowing her location is a strict secret kept only by her grandfather and his servant. He thoughtfully warns that since he cannot lie to the king, knowing her details would risk the toxic Gavizera household discovering her whereabouts. Recalling how delicious her academy pastries were, Grisha smiles warmly as Ronia reveals she opened a local cafe where her new beastmen friends are regulars. Ronia beams happily, sharing that there are many amazing people in town and her cafe business has been surprisingly successful. Walking alongside Grisha through the dappled sunlight, Ronia suddenly apologizes for only talking about her cafe, but Grisha reassures her that it is interesting. Ronia wonders if Grisha looks so worried because she left school after her engagement was annulled, contrasting his usual serious expression with his popularity among women at court banquets. She tells him that their shared serious attitude towards studying magic is the foundation of their friendship, before spotting the fairies and gesturing towards them. Suddenly, the tiny fairies mischievously pop out and begin rubbing their little faces against Grisha's cheeks, causing Ronia to giggle. A smiling Ronia warmly thanks Grisha for his help and asks what she should call him from now on instead of Gavizera-sama. Grisha kindly invites her to call him whatever she likes, noting that a snapping tree branch interrupts the quiet moment, and confirming he no longer uses his family name. Turning his gaze towards the canopy, Grisha asks if she sees Lacklane falling like white feathers, softly murmuring Ronia's name. Ronia firmly insists on giving him the respect he deserves, but Grisha gently asks her to drop the honorifics, admitting he isn't used to such formalities anymore. Feeling it would be rude to speak so casually to her magic mentor and senior, Ronia hesitates to change how she addresses him. Ronia proposes a compromise, smiling brightly as she asks if calling him Grey-sama sounds acceptable. Grisha looks at her in surprise, his dark hair fluttering slightly in the breeze. Ronia beams and excitedly confirms the new nickname, though Grisha lightly touches his neck and awkwardly admits it's fine. Back in the present, the beastmen abruptly enter the forest clearing, realizing that the spirit warped them away and Ronia's scent has vanished. Orphidolt calmly tells the angry beastmen that he won't let them disturb Ronia, but the mercenaries fiercely introduce themselves and insist they mean no harm. The wolf beastman demands to know where their lady is, while the lion reassures Orphidolt that Ronia is a regular at their friend's cafe and they would never hurt her. The feline beastman crosses his arms suspiciously, asking what Orphidolt means by calling Ronia a benefactor. As the beastmen stand tense, Orphidolt observes that humans from Ronia's country often break contracts with the forest inhabitants, prompting Laclane to suggest telling them the truth for her sake. Orphidolt questions if they know about demons, recounting a time when a nasty demon attacked the forest with a horde of monsters. He explains that demons are the root of evil and ominous symbols of destruction, and while Grisha was the first contractor meant to help, he was stuck in a ritual and couldn't leave. A flashback shows a fierce battle against monsters in the forest. Despite it being her exam period at St. Chrysanthi, Ronia came without hesitation. Seeing the overwhelmed forest inhabitants, Orphidolt ordered Ronia to go find and help Laclane. Amidst the chaos and fallen weapons, Ronia finds Laclane suffering from a terrible stab wound. Laclane angrily refuses help from a mere human girl, but Ronia desperately pleads with him to let her heal his fatal wound. Holding her ground, Ronia firmly tells him she will listen to his complaints about betrayals later, insisting she must heal him now. Ronia continues fighting to protect the forest while simultaneously using her magic to care for the injured Laclane. The lion beastman, captivated by the story, asks Orphidolt to explain the details of Ronia's heroic fight. Orphidolt recounts the fierce battle where Ronia summoned countless armored knights for defense and even fought with a sword while casting spells. He reveals that the demon cowardly used monsters as a shield, waiting for Ronia to exhaust her magical power. Realizing a drawn-out battle would be fatal, Ronia declares her intention to settle the fight with the demon in one decisive strike, a feat that seems impossible for just one person. Smiling warmly, Ronia confirms that noble girls are indeed taught a certain degree of swordsmanship to defend themselves. However, Ronia mastered a significantly higher level of combat, seamlessly weaving splendid swordplay and spell-casting to cautiously carve through hordes of monsters before finally facing the demon in a one-on-one duel. Obliterating every trace of the creature's ominous magical presence with decisive strikes, Ronia magnificently sealed the demon away and saved the entire forest. The beastmen listen intently as the story reveals that the monsters were merely manipulated pawns, prompting Ronia to mercifully cast healing magic on her defeated foes. Reasoning that the lesser monsters were just as terrified of the demon, she stubbornly heals them before collapsing into an exhausted slumber, completely ignoring Orphidolt's exasperated scolding as he restores the forest. Standing over her resting form, the majestic forest lord questions the absurdity of her reckless compassion but ultimately decides to let her sleep after such a grueling battle. The fierce mythical beast Laclane silently vows his eternal loyalty, admitting that despite his deep hatred for humans, he was completely charmed by the girl who bravely saved his life. Shifting his piercing gaze to the mercenaries, Orphidolt sternly demands that the detested ruffians heed his absolute warning regarding the forest's greatest benefactor. Staring down the imposing beastmen, the Great Spirit coldly promises to utterly destroy them if they ever dare to hurt Ronia. A tiny spirit frantically flaps its wings to de-escalate the tension, taking the blame for Orphidolt's overprotectiveness and promising to befriend the beastfolk since Ronia trusts them. The panther beastman loses his composure and drops his transformation in sheer shock at learning their milady is a master swordswoman, forcing his wolf companion to intervene and calm him down. An indignant Orphidolt demands to know how they could be ignorant of Ronia's prestigious lineage, prompting the wolf to calmly explain that they respected her boundaries by never prying into her obviously noble past. Realizing his error, the Great Spirit expresses deep regret for unnecessarily rambling about her past, while Laclane reassures him that sharing the truth isn't an issue since Ronia already brought them into their sanctuary. The wolf questions why she would hide such incredible achievements and royal recognition, noting that she never breathed a single word of her heroic deeds to anyone at the cafe. Orphidolt explains that Ronia specifically hid her world-saving actions to avoid drawing attention, prioritizing the forest's safety over her own glory while begging him to keep her deeds a secret from her own family. The somber truth is revealed that despite her monumental achievements, Ronia's family never valued her for who she was, raising her in a cruel environment where her efforts were constantly marginalized. Questioning the beastman's resolve, the spirit asks if they can truly accept her tragic history, noting that the girl who openly embraced detested mercenaries was finally able to escape her own abusive home. The beastmen fiercely declare that they only care about the milady they know now, promising to gladly and patiently listen to her past only when she is truly ready to share it. Swearing their absolute loyalty, the mercenaries vow to accept all of her unrevealed mysteries and promise to never do anything that would betray her trust. Before they can depart, Orphadolt issues one final chilling warning about the demon, revealing that the sealed entity is notorious for breaking restraints and obsessively hunting down the ones who defeated it. Detailing the demon's insidious history of possessing powerful individuals to destroy its enemies' loved ones, the group mutually agrees to remain highly vigilant and watch over Ronia's shop. They conclude that her former abusive environment was far more terrifying than any monster, and firmly decide that she shouldn't have to flee her new life just because the demon might return. Providing her exact location, the majestic bird points them down the road toward the tree that drips orange nectar where Ronia is currently resting with Grisha. The beastmen confidently assert their protective affection for Ronia, grinning fiercely as they playfully challenge the forest spirits to test their resolve before finally heading down the path. A small, helpful spirit flops down and cheerfully offers to guide the eager mercenaries directly to the quiet spot where Ronia usually takes her afternoon naps. Deep in the tranquil forest, Ronia gently stirs from her nap and is quickly greeted by the joyful, dripping approach of her affectionate spirit friend Mocha. The atmosphere shifts as a group of exhausted fairy-like mochas loudly complain about their overwhelming workload, crying out that there are far too many cafe orders for them to handle. Observing the tired fairies, Ronia feels a deep pang of guilt for disrupting their leisurely lifestyle with her shop's demands and sincerely apologizes for overworking them. Acknowledging that the fairies have already harvested more than enough highly popular coffee beans, Ronia kindly decides to relieve them of their duties and harvest the rest herself. She reflects on the incredible success of her cafe, knowing that the exceptional coffee cherries harvested by the forest spirits have earned rave reviews and cultivated a fiercely loyal customer base. A butterfly fairy tells Ronia she shouldn't be resting, but then excitedly decides to continue harvesting coffee beans for her. Ronia watches the fairies work, surprised that her simple thanks raised their motivation so easily, while Kevin suggests visiting the Rotos next. As Ronia warmly greets the Rotos, a creature playfully splashes a massive wave of water onto the group. A companion notices Gray's rare smile, and Gray warmly explains it is because he can see how much the forest inhabitants truly adore Ronia. Gray explains that Ronia's outstanding work in saving the forest from the demon is exactly why she is so deeply loved and rewarded. Ronia expresses relief at randomly meeting Gray in the forest, while he promises to do everything in his power to help her return to the academy. A beastman asserts that Gray would have handled the situation better, but Gray humbly admits his magic was just a test requirement while bringing up Ronia's broken engagement to Schneider. Ronia firmly declares her decision to stop hiding behind others, refusing to ever return to the academy where the noble Lady Ronia Gavizra belonged. Smiling with renewed confidence, she credits Gray's constant support for finally allowing her to stand independently on her own 2 feet. The beastmen step forward with encouraging smiles, asking her to let their presence be a strong pillar of support for her as well. Gray recalls the unprecedented sight of Ronia holding a sword to fight off advancing demons while simultaneously chanting complex magic to summon ancient knights. The cowardly demon protected himself using monsters as shields to wait for Ronia's magical reserves to deplete, forcing Lachlan to desperately rely on her. Knowing a prolonged battle was dangerous, Ronia gripped her sword and bravely resolved to attack the demon head-on to settle the fight immediately. With a confident smile, she reveals to the spirit that noble ladies are trained in swordsmanship to some extent. However, her training went far beyond basic self-defense, allowing her to flawlessly defeat monsters with splendid swordplay while continuing her magic chants in a fierce duel. With a powerful, decisive strike, she sliced through the demon's magic and successfully sealed the creature to save the entire forest. The beastmen listened to the epic tale in total awe, eagerly leaning in to ask what happened after her incredible victory. Ronia was immediately seen gently healing the wounded monsters, explaining to a shocked Lachlan that they were simply manipulated by the demon and never intended to attack. Cradling a small monster, she tearfully confesses that she cannot bear to leave them wounded because fighting back must have been utterly terrifying for them. The monsters peacefully retreat into the woods as Ronia finally collapses from exhaustion, prompting a gentle voice to tell the recovering Lachlan that he can scold her later. The majestic spirit gently guards the sleeping girl, explaining to Lachlan that letting her rest is entirely reasonable after such a grueling battle. The spirit softly admits that his daughter used to hate humans, but Ronia proved to be a true lifesaver whom they will gladly follow. The spirit sternly reminds the beastmen that Ronia is the forest's benefactor and demands they heed his words carefully. Glaring fiercely at the mercenaries, the lord of the forest threatens to completely destroy them if they ever dare to hurt Ronia. A beastman frantically waves his hands to defuse the tension, explaining that they genuinely want to get along with the girl who so kindly cared for them. Orphidolt raises a skeptical eyebrow, challenging the mercenaries by asking if they actually know Ronia's true identity and lethal sword skills. The spirit is utterly dumbfounded and furious that the beastmen constantly call her young lady, without actually knowing who she is. A beastman defensively shrugs off the surprise, casually stating they just call her that because she is young and seemed reluctant to discuss her highborn status. Lachlan panics that he accidentally revealed too much about the demon fight, but another spirit reassures him that Ronia wouldn't mind since she trusts them enough to bring them here. The beastmen wonder why Ronia hides her immense magical power and court mage praise at the coffee shop, completely baffled by her extreme modesty. Listening to the great spirit Orif declare that saving the forest means saving the world, a beastman accepts the explanation but questions why Ronia refuses to stand out. Glaring fiercely, Orif asks the beastman if he has ever been recognized for his efforts, while Ronia quietly pleads to keep everything a secret from her family. A noble observes that Ronia tragically grew up having her great achievements completely denied, leading her to constantly underestimate herself. Although Ronia has finally escaped that oppressive situation, she actively accepts the very beastmen who are fiercely hated by the city's inhabitants. Eagerly pledging their loyalty, the beastmen cheerfully promise they will never say a word to the lady and will always listen if she wants to talk about her past. The fierce beastmen stand united in their quiet determination to protect their new ally. Vowing absolute loyalty, they declare they are perfectly fine with keeping her secrets and will never betray Ronia. The conversation suddenly darkens as they discuss the demon, a malicious entity obsessed with the person who defeated him and notorious for breaking sealing magic. Recognizing that the demon targets vulnerable minds and possesses excellent beings, the group worries Ronia is being targeted and agrees to keep a close watch. Realizing the toxic environment denying her may have been scarier than the demon itself, a beastman praises Ronia for not running away and promises Grisha will seal the monster next time. When asked about Ronia's whereabouts, the spirit smoothly directs them straight down the road near an orange honey tree alongside Grisha. Tensions briefly flare as a beastman challenges reijou-wa-mattari-wo, demanding to know if he wants to fight or finally understands their shared affection for Ronia. Flashing a wild grin, the spirit confidently offers to guide the group directly to the peaceful spot where Ronia usually takes her naps. Two large beastmen relax comfortably on the grassy forest floor, casually deciding to wait right there. Ronia cheerfully approaches a resting fairy named Mocha, warmly introducing herself and asking how her day is going. Startled from her peaceful lounging in the leaves, Mocha looks up in surprise as Ronia calls out her name. The tiny fairy instantly erupts into a shouting fit, furiously complaining that she has too many orders, is exhausted, and absolutely refuses to work anymore. Unlike the Lottos who happily visit the store every day, an overworked Mocha desperately just wants to sleep. Smiling gently, Ronia apologizes for making the fairies so busy while she lived comfortably, painfully understanding their desperate need to relax. As Ronia blames herself for asking too much, her companion calmly reminds her that anyone accepting a request must see it through to the end. When Ronia suggests picking up the beans herself because of prosperous coffee sales, a defensive Mocha stubbornly insists she has enough help. Ronia expresses deep gratitude, noting that the delicious coffee made from the Purpie's cherries brings countless customers who simply cannot function without it. Instantly swayed by the glowing praise, Mocha's eyes sparkle as she completely abandons her break, aggressively volunteering to harvest immediately. Watching the fairy zoom off, Ronia sighs in realization, noting that her attempt to show gratitude accidentally motivated them instead. Hoping the fairies don't overdo it while working at their own pace, Ronia turns her attention to Kevin and heads out to meet the Lottos. Before they can reach the lotus fields, Kevin the slime excitedly spurts water, splashing a laughing Ronia. Seeing her joyful smile, her companion tells Stevie there is no use stopping her, promising they will all play in the water next time. Gray watches her fondly, remarking that it is incredibly funny and heartwarming how deeply she is loved by the forest's inhabitants. He firmly declares that she saved the forest from the demon, praising her incredible achievements and assuring her she can become a great mage. As Ronia happily reflects on her fateful encounter in the forest, Gray vows to do his absolute best to ensure she returns to the academy. Modestly brushing off her success, Ronia tells Gray she only protected the forest spirit due to the magic needed for her test, reminding him that her engagement with Schneider is broken. Smiling brightly, she vows to leave behind her fear of her family and stop waiting for others to change her situation, resolutely declaring she will never return to school as Ronia Gravisera. Expressing deep gratitude for Gray's immense support, Ronia confirms she is finally able to walk on her own feet. Stepping forward with fierce loyalty, the Beastmen sincerely ask to support Ronia as well. A fierce lion Beastman aggressively growls and demands to know Gray's identity. Before a fight can erupt, Ronia quickly intervenes to introduce Gray as the mage Gryasha. Shocked that an animal can speak, Gray watches as the lion enthusiastically grabs him while Ronia calls Gray her teacher. Fascinated, Gray realizes they are Beastmen, a race capable of transforming with animal appearances, marking his very first encounter with them. He aggressively asks to touch their ears and see them transform, prompting a strict refusal from the panicked fox Beastman. The Beastmen explain they followed Ronia's scent when she left the honey tree, and she invites them to find the Lottos together since the coffee problem is resolved. Declining the invitation to join them, Gray takes the opportunity to leave while the others agree to return to Orif. Before departing, Gray stops Ronia to give her something important. He presents an amethyst infused with Sogioka magic power, explaining that it will heat up and light up to alert the other holder in a crisis. Placing the glowing crystal in her hand, he reassures her that there will always be someone standing next to her. Gray firmly promises to rush to her aid and deal with the demon whenever it reappears. Feeling the warm crystal, Ronia recognizes Gray's unspoken desire to help her, confident he could completely seal the demon. Waving goodbye alongside the protective Beastmen, Ronia warmly thanks Gray as he departs. As he walks away, Gray mentally warns himself not to underestimate the demon's dangerous obsession. He worries that Ronia is no longer safe without the San Crisanti Academy's magical protection, depending entirely on how the demon attacks. However, Gray finds comfort in knowing the strong Beastmen are by her side to protect her. Deciding to assure the king of her safety if asked, Gray accepts her current situation for the time being despite worrying she might grow too attached to her new companions. The Beastmen ask where everyone has been, reminding Ronia they aren't like Shiis who mindlessly chases small animals. Ronia mentions they met Lackrain, prompting the fox Beastman to realize this is their first encounter with the winged being. Surrounded by the protective Beastmen, the lion playfully asks to hold Ronia's hand. The fox gently scolds the lion to stop treating Ronia like a kid, though he understands the urge after hearing how much the store manager is loved. They discuss how they have kept their distance from those who failed to understand them. They acknowledge that the vast forest is home to many different, unique creatures. Gentle manta ray creatures playfully drape themselves over Ronia's head as the Beastmen watch her affectionately. Handing her a delicious berry, the Beastmen note that the dedicated lady is already thinking about implementing it in her coffee shop menu. Cheerful and surrounded by her new friends, Ronia admits she genuinely wants to relax but deeply loves working in her shop just as much. Towering over Ronia, the majestic spirit asks if she is finished while she warmly confirms that the Perpies will continue collecting the coffee beans. Revealing he recently met Gryasha, the spirit leaves Ronia confused as she has no message for him, while the Beastmen whisper about missed opportunities. Eager for some rest before meeting the Lottos, Ronia cheerfully asks her Beastmen companions to show her a good spot for a quick nap. Realizing they worried for nothing regarding a potential fight with Lackrain, the relieved Beastmen gently guide the awakened Ronia forward. Gazing at her with pure admiration, the Beastmen marvel at how completely unafraid Ronia is of their sharp fangs and heavy claws. Unveiling a tranquil sunlit clearing, a proud Beastman loudly declares they have arrived at his absolute favorite spot for a nap. Encouraging her to try it out, the Beastman confidently promises that simply lying down on the soft earth feels incredibly good. Flopping heavily onto the grassy floor, they happily agree that the vibrant forest earth is somehow even softer than a real bed. Stretching out under the dappled sunlight, the entire group groans in pure delight at the supreme comfort of the meadow. Just as Ronia thinks she must finally leave to see the Lottos, a large furry paw suddenly reaches out and grabs her softly. Pulling her into a massive and comforting embrace, the towering lion Beastman rumbles deeply and tells Ronia to just relax for a while. Caught completely off guard by the gentle gesture, a blushing Ronia hesitates before softly agreeing to stay grounded. Sinking into the incredibly soft fur, she silently wonders if it is truly okay to selfishly enjoy their immense fluffiness like this. Surrendering to the overwhelming warmth, her cheeks flush bright red as she melts entirely into the beastman's incredibly soft embrace. Snapping out of her pleasant daze, a flustered Ronia forcefully declines when a grinning beastman playfully offers her an arm pillow. With her heart violently pounding in her chest, she admits to herself that she would secretly love to sleep cuddled up with them. Hiding his flushed face behind his paw, a fox beastman quietly yearns for a deeply forgiving relationship just like this one. Drifting off to sleep, she reflects on the delightfully strange feeling of peacefully sharing her favorite spots with her brand new friends. Bathed in golden sunlight, the mighty beastmen and the gentle mage peacefully fall fast asleep in a sprawling pile of fur and feathers. Shifting abruptly to the towering palace, a sharply dressed man greets Grisha and casually notes his recent return from vacation. Flashing a dark smile, Robert reveals he fiercely scrutinized Ronia's past and finally discovered the ultimate method to track down his missing sister. Noting that Ronia was notoriously bad at sealing magic, he claims there is a high probability the ancient demon is now utterly obsessed with her. Steepling his fingers with absolute confidence, Robert coldly declares that tracking the obsessed demon will directly lead them to his sister. Staring back with a hardened expression, Grisha narrows his eyes in silent judgment of Robert's ruthlessly calculated plan. Acknowledging Robert's twisted personality, Grisha cuts directly to the chase and demands to know what he actually intends to do when he finally meets Ronia. Leaving Grisha completely dumbfounded, Robert arrogantly states that Ronia must apologize to everyone and fiercely reconnect with His Highness Schneider. Stunned by the pure delusion, Grisha internally points out that it was Schneider who broke the engagement and horribly betrayed her. Completely ignoring reality, Robert bitterly complains that Ronia unforgivably left the academy without looking back or considering Schneider's feelings. Realizing Robert holds a ridiculously distorted perception of the past, Grisha seriously wonders if the man ever reflected on his own vile betrayal. Adjusting his cloak, Robert vows to track the demon's residual magic power and ruthlessly force his stupid sister to take responsibility for ruining their family name. Grisha coldly tells Robert she is more amazed by his sheer ignorance than hurt by his claim that royal mistresses are natural. She strictly reminds him that the Gvisera family cut all social ties with the Grisha kingdom long before he was born over similar disrespect. Looking out the window, they are completely stunned to see a grand carriage bearing the unmistakable flag of the Grisha kingdom. Robert recoils in shock upon hearing that His Highness Schneider will be officially questioned about the engagement cancellation. Grisha turns her back on the conversation and strides purposefully down the towering, chandelier-lit corridor. Before leaving, Grisha drops the bombshell that the Elf Queen's younger brother is already deeply in love with Lady Ronia. Musing on the differences between realms, Grisha realizes Robert foolishly believes a high position in noble society is the most important thing in the world. Remembering Ronia's genuine happiness in the spirit forest, a dark-haired figure confirms that even their grandfather is actively hiding her. Filled with chilling determination, the tracker orders subordinates to monitor everyone entering the mansion to locate Ronia. Waking up to the smell of sun and grass, Ronia sleepily remembers being pampered like a princess while she was sick. She jolts awake in surprise as a usually fierce beastman named Shiis greets her with a massive, warm smile. The tiny Lottos giggle and tease Ronia, claiming she was sleeping so deeply she wouldn't have noticed them climbing all over her. Realizing evening has fallen, Ronia discovers the boss personally draped his jacket over her to prevent her from catching a cold. Shivering slightly as she sits up, Ronia quickly realizes that the forest air has indeed grown quite chilly. A beastman gleefully announces he is going hunting with Lacrain and eagerly asks Ronia to prepare dinner for them. Another beastman corrects him that Setsu is already cooking, just as Ronia joyfully spots a fluffy, cocoon-like fairy named Phi. Delighted to reunite, Ronia tenderly cradles the little fairy against her cheek as it affectionately licks her face. Witnessing the adorable exchange, a massive white feline beastman excitedly thrusts his face forward and begs Ronia to do the same to him. Flustered and waving her hands, Ronia frantically explains she cannot possibly do the same intimate gesture with him. The feline beastman runs away in terror after the wolf beastman Ryusei aggressively snaps at him for being a needy idiot. Ronia quietly wonders if her hesitation stems from embarrassment over opposite-sex interactions, though she tries to brush it off. A majestic, winged centaur glides down from the sky and warmly calls out Ronia's name as he lands. The winged beastman reports the Perpies have safely finished their work, adding that Moka-san is currently sleeping soundly. Ronia gasps in absolute amazement as the beastmen present massive, overflowing sacks of freshly harvested coffee beans. The group triumphantly declares that the crisis is averted and Ronia will finally be able to drink her beloved coffee again. With the boss fast asleep nearby, reijou-wa slyly whispers that this is Ronia's perfect chance to touch his magnificent mane. Suddenly jealous, reijou-wa throws a dramatic fit, whining that it is completely unfair Senna gets to be so close to her. The wolf beastman continues his dramatic, jealous meltdown over not being allowed to approach Ronia as closely as the others. Ignoring the commotion, the winged centaur playfully urges Ronia to hurry up and touch the boss's mane while she can. Flustered and blushing, Ronia nervously hesitates as her companions eagerly push her to go play with the sleeping lion. Observing the majestic lion beastman peacefully sleeping beside the tiny winged felines, Ronia wonders what their true intentions might be, even if there is no deep meaning behind their actions. Admitting that these beastmen are genuinely cool guys, she finds herself drawn to the irresistible fluffiness of the sleeping giant. Reaching out to gently touch his thick mane, she abruptly freezes when the lion suddenly opens a sharp, golden eye. Pulling her trembling hand back in defeat, she realizes she entirely lacks the courage to touch him without explicit permission. Interrupting the quiet moment, the group notices the fading light as they declare it is finally time for the sun to go down. Standing tall in the twilight, a large, clawed hand gently reaches out to the kneeling Ronia as she gazes up in quiet awe. Fixing her with a steady, protective gaze, the imposing lion beastman softly tells her that it is time to go home. Staring back at him with shimmering, wide eyes, Ronia feels a sudden spark of warmth and belonging in the darkening forest. Firmly taking his massive hand with a soft touch, she eagerly agrees and prepares to head back with her powerful companions. Back at the lively shop, the grinning fox beastman excitedly asks the store manager what she plans to make with the requested cherries. Her mind races with brilliant ideas, planning a cherry and powdered sugar cake for fruit-loving Shiis and a sweet and sour raspberry cherry mousse for reijou-wa, all leading up to a grand cherry fair next week. Knowing she will inevitably order a massive batch again, she vows to enthusiastically convey her customers' joyful reactions to the hard-working tree fairies. Handing over a silver coin for a surprisingly good rest, Ronia notes that the forest inhabitants are absolutely thrilled to hear that humans love their coffee. Reluctantly heading out for work, the boisterous beastmen demand she save some cherry cake for them while declaring how incredibly fun their visit was. Flashing a brilliant, heartwarming smile, she happily agrees to their demands. However, the mood shifts as Senna warns her that the demon is actively hunting her, urging her to immediately ask for their help if it ever strikes. Sensing her stubborn independence, he challenges her dangerous assumption that she is perfectly fine dealing with the threat alone. Flashing a fiercely loyal grin, the fox beastman commands her to always remember that the mercenary corps is permanently on her side. Despite knowing she has a magical barrier and could likely face the lone demon herself, Ronia realizes they are genuinely worried for her safety after hearing Gray's ominous warning. Overwhelmed by their unexpected and profound care for her, she smiles brightly, feeling incredibly happy and eager to see them all again. Soon after, a cheerful sign goes up outside her bustling cafe, excitedly announcing that the Grand Cherry Fair will officially kick off the day after tomorrow. Gratefully thanking the tiny helpers for gathering so many cherries, Ronia reveals she has masterfully crafted 7 distinct menu items and looks forward to their continued assistance. The tiny, round fairies enthusiastically haul massive, glistening cherries toward the preparation bowls in a flurry of adorable teamwork. Her spectacular menu boasts mouth-watering treats like cherry juice, raspberry mini cakes, chocolate sauce cake, shortcake, and rich fondant chocolate. Delighted customers savor the beautiful desserts, eagerly praising the incredibly cute and delicious cherry raspberry mini cakes as the absolute best. Thrilled by the fair's explosive popularity, Ronia happily thanks her patrons while secretly hoping she can still save enough cake for Shiis as promised. With plenty of treats left over to guarantee Shi's happy face, she cheerfully accepts orders for whole cakes to go from her absolutely enchanted customers. As the afternoon empties the shop of easily frightened city folk, Ronia waits in the quiet cafe, eagerly wondering if her beloved beastmen will arrive soon. Suddenly, the door swings wide open as the imposing beastmen boldly burst into the shop, roaring for their usual orders. Beaming with pure joy at the sight of her loyal protectors, Ronia eagerly jumps into action and promises to make their food right away. Serving her guests with a bright smile, Ronia efficiently hands out the usual massive bacon steaks while Shiis takes his coffee and Ryu accepts a light latte. Discussing everyone's unique preferences, they note that Chais loves her cherry juice and the smaller Senna sticks to a latte while only one orders a simple sandwich. Marveling at the gorgeous spread of fruit tarts, the Beastmen praise her delicious work while noting it seems difficult for a young lady to bake all alone. Brushing off the concern with a cheerful laugh, Ronia proudly explains that she thoroughly enjoyed making the beautiful pastries alongside the helpful lados. Savoring the sweet treats, the group joyfully agrees that the cherry sauce perfectly enhances the fondant chocolate and makes the festival truly special. Indulging in the incredible feast, the companions happily gorge themselves on the delightfully rich and sweet desserts. Watching her new friends thoroughly enjoy the food, Ronia smiles warmly and playfully exchanges high fives with the satisfied group. Flashing a mischievous grin, Ryu pops a cherry into his mouth and challenges Ronia to replicate his trick. Effortlessly tying the cherry stem into a knot inside his mouth, he boldly claims that anyone who can pull off the trick is an excellent kisser. Horrified by the unladylike thought of pulling something out of her mouth, Ronia frantically declines the challenge while observing that everyone else is surprisingly good at it. Leaning in with intense curiosity, the mischievous Beastman locks eyes with Ronia and bluntly asks if she has ever kissed someone. Blushing furiously as a sudden memory of Schneider flashes through her mind, Ronia desperately tries to change the subject by offering more cake. Sensing her distress, the other Beastmen quickly drag a protesting Ryu away to work, playfully scolding him while Ronia stammers an apology. Bathed in the warm glow of the afternoon sun, the quaint little cafe stands peacefully after a highly successful day at the Cherry Festival. Gently petting a small spirit while watching an hourglass drain, a quiet Ronia reflects on the lingering bittersweet memories of her first love. Shaking off the melancholy, she enthusiastically resolves to prepare even more delicious treats for the bustling festival tomorrow. Startled by the sudden chime of the shop bell, she hurries to the front door wondering if one of her friends forgot something behind. Throwing the door open, Ronia gasps in absolute shock as she locks eyes with her distinguished grandfather and a sharply dressed Ramo. Overjoyed by the unexpected reunion, she throws her arms around her grandfather as he warmly praises the obvious success of her charming store. Tears of sheer relief stream down Ramo's face as grandfather steps inside, visibly relieved that the malicious Robert has not yet found her hiding place. Apologizing for the incredibly brief visit, grandfather explains he had to lose a persistent spy sent by Robert just to safely see her face today. Expressing deep regret that he cannot protect her from her terrifying brother, grandfather sighs in profound relief just seeing her safe and well. Swallowing her lingering fear of her brother, a confident Ronia assures her grandfather that making wonderful new friends has given her the strength to overcome her anxiety. Promising to sit down and hear her full story next time, grandfather prepares to leave and offers her a special souvenir as Ramo alerts him to the time. Touched by the gesture, Ronia proudly presents him with a freshly baked cherry cake from the festival to take back home. Mentioning that her friend Lexi was desperately asking about her, grandfather sparks Ronia's desire to reveal her new life with the mercenaries and forest spirits. Stunned by the sudden news, Ronia questions how Lexi could have possibly returned home when she was supposed to be stuck in a neighboring country. Shaking his head solemnly, grandfather explains he wanted to speak with Lexi but was blocked by Schneider's presence and Robert's lurking spies. Warning her with absolute gravity, grandfather insists that Ronia must avoid any contact with Lexi since the girl's movements are likely being heavily monitored. Promising to tell Lexi to wait a bit longer if she ever visits, Ronia bids a fond farewell to her grandfather and thanks him deeply for the sweet cake. Ronia cheerfully holds a box with the little Lottos, encouraging the guys to come on and bring the cake home. The Lottos happily accompany Ronia as she excitedly repeats that they can take the cake home. Holding a shiny magical stone, she firmly reminds herself not to forget to bring it when she goes out. Looking at her cooking notes, she decides to increase her repertoire by imagining what her customers like, deeply admiring the owner's cooking skills. Reading a menu book, Ronia mysteriously reflects that she can serve her customers much more smoothly than before she got sick. Glancing around the empty store, she wonders if everyone will arrive soon since they are usually here by this time. Staring out the window as evening falls, she anxiously hopes that nothing bad has happened to her friends. Ronia stands quietly outside her shop as she watches the townspeople gather with concerned expressions. The townspeople nervously discuss a large group of people arriving from the neighboring country, noting that even Baron Wreath is tied up and wondering if the Beastmen mercenary corps can handle it. Gazing into the distance, Ronia tries to reassure herself that those guys are strong and should be okay since they are protecting the border. Her anxiety spikes as she nervously wonders if there is another type of problem, fearing they might be unable to move due to a serious injury. A frantic young girl rushes up to Ronia, prompting the startled owner to ask what happened to put her in such a desperate hurry. The breathless girl urgently asks if Ronia still has any cherry cake left to buy, leaving Ronia momentarily stunned by the sudden request. Sitting alone in her room later, Ronia admits she returned to the store out of worry, knowing she cannot reveal her big magic without being found by the demon or her brother. Clasping her hands in deep prayer, she begs for their safety after they failed to show up today, trying to convince herself they simply didn't feel like visiting the store. Ronia forces a cheerful smile as she offers bread refills to her customers, with an older patron warmly noting that Ronia's laughter makes everyone feel happier. Watching Ronia interact with customers, the Lottos and her friends sigh, observing that she always behaves cheerfully when she is secretly pushing herself. The doorbell rings and the beastmen finally burst in, energetically calling out for the miss and demanding their usual order. Startled by their sudden appearance, Ronia stares blankly, prompting the confused beastmen to ask what is wrong. The beastmen quickly surround her with genuine concern, asking if she feels sick again or if something bad happened since she didn't greet them with a welcome. Ronia softly admits that she was simply wondering if something terrible happened to them because they didn't come yesterday. Relieved that she was just lonely, the boys excitedly explain that they chased an enemy far away yesterday and returned so late they chose to sleep instead of eat. Lowering her eyes, Ronia vulnerably confesses that she truly was lonely without them. She tearfully explains she was terrified they were struggling against the demon targeting her, before trying to convince herself they might just be tired of her restaurant. Smiling warmly, the beastmen assure her this is the only place that gives them preferential treatment, declaring they won't ever lose to a demon or anything else. They confidently reassure her that while they appreciate her worrying, they are strong enough to defeat even the demon. One of the beastmen tenderly calls out to the miss, touched and slightly amused that she became so depressed over a single day's absence. He warmly reflects that it is no good to just be spoiled, realizing he is older than her and should be more responsible. He gently asks her to welcome them with her usual cute smile, promising that they will absolutely come back tomorrow. As he affectionately pats her head, Ronia looks up with teary eyes and softly agrees to their heartfelt promise. Smiling brightly, Ronia watches in amusement as a tiny beastman happily exclaims how cute everything is. Leaning in with a cool smirk, the lion beastman confidently demands a large bacon steak, a fondant, and her signature coffee. The fox beastman playfully declares his stomach won't be satisfied without her meal, ordering sandwiches and a latte after flying all the way there. Chaos erupts as the hungry beastmen excitedly shout out their massive orders, demanding quick service while Ronia cheerfully asks what reijou-wa wants. Beaming with pure joy, Ronia turns to cook, prompting the beastmen to warmly realize how much she genuinely likes them. Thrilled by their immense enthusiasm, Ronia promises to prepare a special beef steak for them tomorrow if they return. Later, holding a heavy book on demons, she seriously notes that she must prepare in case they have to fight the monstrous threat. Sensing her deep worry, a beastman licks his lips and asks if she thinks they will lose, noting she clearly doesn't want them to face the demon. Ronia passionately argues that while they would win in a fair fight, the cunning demon easily manipulates others and wields troublesome magic. Trying to reassure her, the confident warriors argue that simply ripping the demon's head off will immediately crush its magical control. Stepping forward with profound concern, Ronia earnestly asks if she can cast a divine protection magic on everyone. The beastmen burst into excited cheers, absolutely thrilled at the prospect of receiving a free, genuine magical spell from their favorite manager. As Ronia gently steps forward to wrap them in her power, the beastmen nervously ask what a protection spell actually feels like. With a swift twirl, Ronia casts a glowing spell over the beastmen and herself, making them highly resistant to harmful magical effects. Seeing them off at the door, Ronia anxiously hopes they will maintain public order carefully as they head toward the dangerous border. Pausing at the threshold, she sincerely tells them to take care, praying deeply that her new friends do not get hurt. Promising to return tomorrow afternoon, the massive lion gently ruffles her hair before the mercenary group heads out. Blushing furiously from the intimate contact, Ronia slumps down against the door as her tiny fairies pop out to comfort her. Recovering her composure under their intense, adorable stares, she quickly laughs and assures them she is perfectly fine. Eagerly anticipating tomorrow, she playfully asks who wants the remaining cake, causing the fairies to cheer wildly in the shop. Taking the plunge, she buys the highest quality beef and happily prepares a red wine steak, deeply motivated by the beastman's generous tips. Sitting quietly with a book, Ronia wonders if it is finally time for her beloved mercenary corps to return to the cafe. Suddenly, an unnatural darkness chokes the daytime sky as a chilling sensation of powerful, wide-range magic washes over her. Recognizing the terrifying magical signature from the spirit forest, she realizes Grey is busy and she must step up to protect the city. Stepping outside, she watches in sheer horror as massive magical bombardments violently crash down near the panicked townspeople. A terrified villager screams that the beastmen and bandits are fighting nearby, begging Ronia to evacuate immediately from the magical onslaught. Refusing to run as the lethal bombardment continues to rain down, Ronia realizes the entire city will burn to the ground at this destructive rate. Taking a deep breath amidst the deafening explosions, she firmly clenches her fist and prepares to enter the fray. Refusing to waste another precious second, she fiercely claps her hands together and deploys an absolute magic barrier to protect the fleeing citizens. Standing resolute behind her shimmering shield, Ronia confidently notes that no magician in this town has the power to even perceive her flawless barrier. Relieved that the falling rocks have finally stopped, Ronia urgently wishes she could leave the safety of the city to help the beastmen. Knowing she is not particularly skilled at barrier magic, she realizes she must maintain absolute concentration to uphold a defense of this massive scale. Holding firmly to her faith in her companions, she trusts the beastmen will keep their promise and return safely to eat her steak. She desperately hopes they can return to her shop laughing about an easy victory so they can finally relax. On the chaotic battlefield, an angry bandit commander violently kicks his half-hearted magician to the ground as their assault stalls. Annoyed by the stubborn beastmen standing in their way, the enemies watch in frustration as their magical projectiles bounce harmlessly off a shimmering dome protecting the city. Slashing fiercely through the invading bandits, the beastmen recognize the magnificent magic barrier and realize there is only one person capable of casting it. Kicking an enemy square in the jaw, a beastman momentarily wonders if their dangerous battle made their favorite lady worry too much. Fired up by the mouth-watering promise of beefsteak, the beastmen push forward with renewed ferocity, eager to finish the fight quickly. High above the city, a mysterious horned figure sits perched on a tree branch, observing the magical attacks bouncing effortlessly off Ronia's barrier. Flashing a wicked, fanged grin, the dark mage excitedly calls out Ronia's name and vows to finally capture her this time. Ignorant of the looming threat, Ronia stays firmly rooted in place, pouring all her strength into maintaining the massive magic barrier. Clasping her hands together, she prays deeply that her friends will soon return to her coffee shop with bright smiles on their faces. Approaching the bandit leader with a casual stride, the dark mage bluntly announces that she is completely done attacking the city of Damascus. Furious at the sudden betrayal, the bandit leader yells that they only followed her because her magic guaranteed a win, but she coldly ignores his rage. Letting out a hollow laugh, the dark mage claims she is just a peaceful observer and blames her sudden retreat on the powerful girl currently defending the city. Accusing her of blatant deceit, the bandits try to argue, but the dark mage simply states she will get her captain's permission to leave and handle the defending mage personally. Slipping her hand through her hair, the dark mage sighs about the exhausting nature of sucking up to people while her piercing gaze strikes absolute terror into the bandit leader. Draping herself over her terrified captain, the dark mage seductively whispers that she finally found the girl she was looking for and asks permission to leave. As the red-tinted sky finally returns to a peaceful blue, the devastating rain of rocks ceases entirely, leaving the dark mage eager to play with Ronia. Back in the safe confines of the city, Ronia happily distributes a large basket of freshly baked goods to the recovering townspeople. Thanking Ronia for the comforting bread, the relieved citizens discuss how fortunate they are that the fires were extinguished with zero serious injuries. An older woman reflects that the town is much safer now compared to the past, explicitly crediting the hired beastmen mercenaries for their unwavering protection. Despite their immense gratitude for a battle with no casualties, the townspeople admit they are still deeply terrified of the beastmen's sheer destructive power. Acknowledging that the beastmen are merely survivors of a destroyed tribe, the citizens confess their lingering fear that the mercenaries' violent anger might one day turn on them. Listening quietly, Ronia realizes the townspeople actively avoid engaging with the mercenaries purely out of deep-seated fear and misunderstanding. Dropping the magic barrier now that the immediate danger has passed, Ronia decides she will not force the terrified townspeople and the beastmen to get along. Turning her attention to her little spirit helpers, Ronia cheerfully asks them to help clean up the shop before the beastmen finally return. Staggering slightly from sheer exhaustion, she vows to keep the coffee shop doors open for her friends, though she secretly hopes they go straight home to rest. Bursting through the doors with triumphant grins, the exhausted but starving beastmen loudly announce their arrival and eagerly demand their promised beefsteaks. Bursting into the store, the majestic lion beastman loudly demands a steak while his wolf companion settles for his usual sandwich. Ronia warmly welcomes her rugged patrons back, promptly offering them refreshing wet towels and drinks to start. Setting down a tray of iced coffee, Ronia is surprised when the massive lion insists she drink some too since it is his treat. Politely declining a reward for simply defending herself, Ronia humbly notes that her magical barrier kept the town's damage completely minimal. Refusing to take no for an answer, the imposing lion reaches out and gently squeezes her arm, firmly urging her to take the reward. Completely defeated by the irresistible paw attack, Ronia graciously accepts the gift and raises her cup to commemorate their triumphant fight together. Glasses clink joyfully in the lively cafe as the group cheers to their hard-won victory and shared camaraderie. Watching the fluffy yet formidable beastmen happily devour their steaks, Ronia deeply hopes they will continue visiting her forever. A warm smile graces her face as she watches them bicker over dirty faces, praying her humble store always remains their comforting sanctuary. Declaring it is time to go home, Shiis grabs Ronia's hands and suddenly drops an incredibly heavy pouch of pure gold coins into her palms. Ronia shrieks in absolute panic at the overflowing fortune of gold and dazzling jewels, frantically insisting she cannot possibly accept such immense wealth. Flustered but practical, she timidly asks if she can at least use a fraction of the sprawling treasure to repair the building's rock damage. Teasing her for forgetting her usual farewell, the beastmen casually brush off the fortune and declare it all belongs entirely to her now. Winking playfully, Ronia sticks out her tongue and brightly thanks her beloved friends for faithfully keeping their promise to return. The beastmen head out the door with satisfied grins, promising to come back tomorrow as Ronia happily bids them a safe trip. Meanwhile, at the prestigious San Crisanti Academy, Hansel sips tea and cautiously tells a silently brooding Lexi to take it easy. Masking her seething rage behind a chillingly polite smile, Lexi softly asks her companion what he wanted to talk about. Slamming her fists onto the table in a sudden explosion of fury, Lexi fiercely declares that she is completely at her limit with those awful guys. Furious over the blatant injustice, Lexi screams that everyone celebrating Schneider's scandalous affair while Ronia gets expelled are nothing but absolute fools. She passionately vents that the ignorant students mistakenly brand Ronia's powerful Gavizera family as cold-blooded rulers of the Southeast. Lexi fiercely defends her friend, arguing the academy students are simply too terrified to approach Ronia to realize she is not cold-blooded at all. Trembling with mounting frustration over the twisted rumors blaming Ronia, Lexi slams her fist and declares it is time to take action. Staring determinedly ahead, the duo loudly vows that they are the only ones who can prove Ronia's complete innocence. Though Hansel agrees Ronia's honor must be restored, he quietly wonders if the exiled girl even wants to return to their toxic aristocratic society. Striding purposefully through the grand, sunlit academy halls, the determined pair sets their sights on hunting down the key witnesses. Lexi strategically outlines their first target, aiming directly for the two-faced ladies who falsely testified to Schneider that Ronia was evil. Flexing her fingers, Lexi coldly promises that her very first move upon finding the traitors will be to deliver a brutal slap to their faces. Interrupting her vengeful plotting, three nervous girls approach the duo and timidly offer their assistance in finding whoever they are looking for. A terrifyingly predatory grin spreads across Lexi's face as she eerily informs the trembling girls that she was looking exactly for them. Trapped by Lexi's menacing glare, the three terrified traitors instantly burst into tears and desperately beg for mercy. Bursting into tears, the trembling girls desperately beg Lexi to let them help Ronia, confessing that they were tormented by Mizano. The weeping students frantically clarify that they were the ones who harassed Mizano, swearing that Ronia was completely innocent. Utterly stunned by their confession, Lexi asks what they mean as the girls wail and plead for her help. Relieved she didn't slap them, Lexi suggests changing locations as a girl explains they couldn't stand Mizano's arrogant attitude toward Prince Schneider. The girl admits they ignored Ronia's repeated warnings to stop their harassment, confirming Ronia had absolutely nothing to do with it. Confused, Lexi questions why they testified against Ronia and allowed Prince Schneider to publicly denounce her if she was innocent. A terrified girl cries that she lied to escape horrifying hallucinations, revealing that Ms. Ano mercilessly forced her to falsely accuse Ronia. Drowning in regret, the sobbing girls repeatedly apologize for their cowardly betrayal. Lexi admits she and Hansel have been searching for the expelled Ronia but kept quiet out of fear of Ms. Ano. Desperate to make amends, the girls beg Lexi to tell them how they can finally help the wronged noble. Clenching her fist in fury, Lexi accepts their resolve and vows to have them testify, deeply angered by Miss Ano's cruel public insult. Burning with righteous determination, Lexi commands Hansel to follow her as she marches off to confront Schneider directly. Flashing a confident smile, Hansel eagerly agrees to go wake the foolish prince up. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, an enraged voice demands to know why Schneider called off his wedding to such a wonderful girl. King Aladdin Sieghart glares fiercely at the sweating prince, bluntly asking what the hell happened as Princess Lunatira watches silently. Weeping dramatically, the massive Jinn King violently rubs Schneider's head while imagining how devastated the sweet-smelling Ronia must have been. Assuming the prince made the agonizing decision after serious thought, the Jinn King tries to comfort the terrified boy. Schneider sweats bullets as the king's misplaced kindness pierces his guilty heart, terrified of the impending wrath once the truth is exposed. Stepping forward, the elegant Princess Lunatira calmly asks what Schneider's new lover looks like. The Jinn King loudly praises Ronia's kind heart and incredible talents, noting how she effortlessly charmed the shy fairy Lotto. Lunatira slyly comments that the new woman must be truly spectacular to justify abandoning someone as wonderful as Ronia. The Jinn King enthusiastically agrees, declaring his burning desire to meet this beautiful woman whose pure heart cleanses the world. Schneider's heart pounds in absolute terror as he realizes Miss Ano's expectations have been raised to an impossible height. Trapped in a suffocating silence, the panicking prince frantically wonders how he will ever survive this disastrous misunderstanding. Outraged that Ronia's parents disowned her, the king boldly demands to know where the missing girl is currently hiding. Lunatira coldly suspects Schneider hasn't seen Ronia since the cruel breakup, warning him to realize the immense gravity of his actions. Sweating profusely, Schneider lies and claims he is actively searching for her to prevent his obsessed brother from inflicting more psychological damage. Hearing that Prince Alvius is also obsessively hunting her down, Lunatira generously offers to welcome Ronia into her own country. Praising Ronia's stellar academic record, the princess smiles and mentions the fascinating rumors she recently caught on the wind. Leaning in close, Lunatira whispers the shocking truth that Ronia single-handedly defeated the demon Belzeta and saved the spirit forest. Discussing her hidden achievements, the group marvels at how Ronia bravely rushed into the spirit forest to fight demons and save the inhabitants during an exam 2 years ago. Declaring his desire to heal her wounded heart, a royal boldly claims he can protect Ronia from any trouble far better than his own brother could. Debating who holds more information about the demons, Lunatira proudly boasts that her country's healing magic is undeniably the best. Concluding that Ronia must ultimately decide her own path, the speaker warns Schneider that they might just find her before he does. Concluding the intense meeting, a solemn Schneider quietly exits the grand hall. Walking away with a heavy heart, Schneider worries that Alvius might exploit this delicate situation to finally capture Ronia for himself. Hidden from Ronia's oblivious eyes, His Royal Highness has silently harbored a deep and intense love for her for well over 2 years. Recalling a tense past encounter, Schneider remembers the prince fiercely glaring at him and heavily implying he was completely unworthy of Ronia. Sitting alone in his quiet room, Schneider remembers his own cold words declaring he no longer cared about Ronia or what happened to her. Haunted by the past, he cannot erase the tragic memory of Ronia smiling through her pain and wishing him happiness right after he callously broke their engagement. Trying to justify his choices, he tells himself Ms. Ano is a wonderful woman who always strives for the top, yet he remains deeply conflicted about Ronia's true feelings. Shattering the silence, Lexi violently slams the door open and bursts into Schneider's room despite Hansel's frantic protests. Leaving Schneider completely bewildered, an infuriated Lexi loudly declares that Ms. Ano orchestrated the harassment and that Ronia is entirely innocent. Pleading with the stunned Schneider to listen, Hansel gently restrains Lexi and insists they must explain the shocking truth step by step. Lexi reveals that the spiteful girls acted on their own hatred for Ms. Ano, completely clearing Ronia of any involvement in the vicious bullying. Exposing the sinister plot, She explains how a vengeful Mizano used horrific hallucinations to torture the girls into falsely naming Ronia as their ringleader. Realizing he was completely played, Schneider remembers how Mizano deceptively sobbed in his arms and falsely claimed Ronia was ruthlessly bullying her. Furious at his blind ignorance, Lexi screams that Ronia left the academy completely disillusioned because Schneider eagerly turned his heart to another woman. Flashbacks flood his mind of him harshly interrogating a desperate Ronia while ignoring her pleas to simply believe her. He remembers aggressively silencing Ronia, completely shutting down her desperate attempts to defend herself against the vile accusations. Crushed by immense guilt, Schneider realizes Ronia's final, heartbreaking smile was a selfless wish for his happiness despite his cruel betrayal. Ignited by a sudden surge of desperate resolve, Schneider loudly vows to track down Ronia and bring her back. Scoffing at his incredibly late realization, Lexi points out his apology is useless since nobody actually knows where the exiled girl is hiding. Determined to find answers, Schneider boldly declares he will confront Ronia's fiercely protective grandfather despite being rejected at his door once before. Arriving at the imposing estate, a desperate Schneider kneels humbly before Ronard while Lexi and Hansel watch the tense standoff. Glaring down with absolute disgust, the stern grandfather coldly reminds Schneider that Ronia is not a convenient object he can discard and reclaim at will. Stammering under the crushing weight of Ronard's intense fury, a sweating Schneider weakly attempts to defend his selfish intentions. Ruthlessly tearing down his excuses, Ronard condemns Schneider's desire to see her as purely selfish and orders him to abandon his search if he truly feels remorse. Shifting his piercing gaze, the unforgiving grandfather sternly warns Lexi and Hansel that the exact same boundary applies to them. Firmly closing the heavy doors, Ronard demands they never bring this painful matter up again in order to finally protect Ronia's hard-won peace. Desperate and distraught, Schneider pleads with Ronard-sama, admitting his massive failure and begging for a moment to explain his actions. Vividly recalling his broken promises, Schneider agonizes over how he once vowed to protect Ronia from her own intimidating family. Gazing at haunting memories of the girl who loved him wholeheartedly, he realizes he didn't just tear up a paper but shattered Ronia's very heart. Driven by a sudden, sharp realization, Schneider declares that Ronia is the only woman who truly loves him and vows to win her back. Ignoring the calls to stop, the prince swears he will scour every inch of the kingdom until he finds a single clue to Ronia's whereabouts. Despite his burning determination, his companions bluntly remind him that the entire kingdom has already been searched and urge him to return home. Schneider reflects on his hollow feelings for Mizano, finally understanding that Ronia's selfless departure was her final act of love toward him. Far away in the serene forest, Ronia pauses in surprise as she feels a mysterious, distant voice calling out her name through the wind. Tucking herself into bed, Ronia dismisses the strange sensation as mere imagination following her exhausting use of high-level defensive magic. The ancient spirits of the forest watch over the sleeping girl, praising her for successfully driving away the root of evil before she collapses from exhaustion. As she drifts into a deep slumber, a brilliant, celestial light begins to envelop Ronia's peaceful form within the magical canopy. The forest whispers secrets of eternal rebirth, promising that the lives protected today will eventually sprout anew in the sacred soil. In a soft, dreamlike state, Ronia reaches out to the spirit Orifidoto-sama and expresses her heartfelt wish to be reborn within this very forest. Bathed in ethereal light, Ronia smiles serenely as the majestic creatures of the woods gather to witness her pure connection with the spirit realm. The forest cats watch over the resting manager, gently urging all creatures to let the brave human sleep in absolute peace. The spirits admit their deep distrust of haughty human nobles, yet they acknowledge that Ronia's heroic heart has earned their complete devotion. Acknowledging her sacrifice to save their home, the ancient entities officially declare the human girl a true and cherished friend of the forest. Orifidoto-sama officially grants the phantom beast Lacrain the divine authority to become the protective wind that guards Ronia's every step. Cradled by the tiny Latos, Ronia rests in a state of perfect tranquility while the spirits infuse her dreams with ancient power. Waking up refreshed from her nostalgic dream, Ronia stretches energetically and decides it is time to open her beloved shop for the day. Ronia gasps in shock as she descends the stairs and finds her living room transformed by a sudden, unexpected visitor. The magnificent Lacrain arrives with a massive fish as a morning gift, encouraging Ronia to share the feast with her beastman mercenaries. Sensing the lingering ties to her past, Lacrain poses a sudden, hypothetical question about whether Ronia would ever consider returning to Schneider. With unwavering resolve, Ronia firmly shuts down the idea, stating that her life with the prince is over and there is no turning back. Processing the heavy fish for breakfast, Ronia reflects on the strange timing of her dream about that fateful day 2 years ago. A shadow of worry crosses her face as she wonders if dreaming of the devil's ceiling is an ominous warning of returning darkness. She recalls her own strength failing during the battle, forcing Grey-sama to step in and purify the corrupted spirit forest in her place. Interrupting her deep thoughts, Lacrain calls Ronia over, revealing he has a special and essential item to entrust to her. Lacrain explains that while they can fight, only Grisha possesses the unique power required to completely and permanently seal the devil. Entrusting Ronia with his own feathers for instant summoning, Lacrain instructs her to use the amethyst to call Grisha when the darkness finally arrives. Warmly smiling, Ronia expresses her heartfelt gratitude to Lacrain as they share a quiet, meaningful moment together. Lacrain presents Ronia with a beautiful, glowing gift and warns her to take care, reminding her that many people are now deeply attached to her. Peace finally returns to the city as buildings are repaired and everyday life resumes following the chaotic bandit attack. The hectic morning at the shop vanishes in the blink of an eye as Ronia bids farewell to her satisfied customers. Ronia finds herself grinning with pure anticipation as she prepares for the Beastmen mercenaries to arrive later that afternoon. Senna, Ryusei, and the rest of the boisterous Beastman crew burst into the shop, asking if it's finally time to order. Welcoming her loyal friends with open arms, Ronia prepares to host the hungry group for another lively session. Ronia excitedly reveals she is serving rare emperor salmon steak that Lacrain specifically brought for the group's meal. The air fills with the savory aroma of fresh fish as Ronia masterfully sears the thick salmon steaks in her kitchen. While the group settles in, Ronia notices Ryusei acting strangely distant and wonders what is bothering the fox beastman. Surprising Senna as he pores over a book on demons, Ronia praises his diligence while the lion insists on being prepared for anything. Ronia explains that the feather Lacrain gave her can summon him instantly, though she refuses to waste such an important item on a mere steak dinner. Confidently displaying her magical tools, Ronia notes she can also summon Grisha-sama with her amethyst to seal any demonic threat. Ryusei scoffs at the plan, arguing it's far more efficient to simply kill a devil than to wait around for a magician to seal it. Ronia grows serious as she asks if they've heard of the Black Land of Perdition, a kingdom destroyed by the very act of killing a devil. The Beastmen listen intently as Ronia recounts the grim history of the legendary land that met a tragic, mysterious end. Describing the horrors of the Black Land, Ronia explains how the soil turned pitch black and filled with a miasma so poisonous that even monsters fled. The legend tells of a desperate hero who emerged to save his declining country from the devil's relentless shadow. Ronia reveals the terrifying twist: the hero's victory was the kingdom's downfall, as the country was utterly destroyed because they chose to kill the devil. She explains that a dying devil releases a final, catastrophic surge of evil magic that permanently pollutes the earth, making sealing the only safe option. The Beastmen reflect on the grim reality that devils remain a lethal problem even after their physical bodies perish. Switching back to a lighter mood, Ronia serves fresh coffee and encourages the hardworking mercenaries to finally relax with her. As they feast on the delicious salmon and treats, Ryusei asks Ronia to describe the specific devil that is currently hunting her. Ronia warns them that her pursuer can manifest as both male and female, shifting forms to perfectly mislead and trick his targets. She provides a chilling description of a figure in all black with long jet black hair, gray eyes, and striking red eyeliner. Despite the terrifying details, Ronia smiles and reassures the worried beastmen that the chances of the devil finding her in this city are slim. The group finishes their incredible meal, and Senna prepares to head out while thanking Lacrain for providing the food. Letting out a massive yawn, the sleepy lion beastman declares he is heading home to get some much-needed rest. Ronia warmly thanks her protectors for their visit and sincerely asks them to come by the shop again soon. Ever the intellectual, Senna mentions he'll be stopping by the bookstore on his way home, leaving Ronia to close up for the day. Ronia feels the shop grows suddenly cold and empty as the last of the customers depart for the evening. The tiny spirits celebrate a successful day by dancing joyously amongst a colorful bounty of fresh fruit. Reflecting on her journey, Ronia realizes how deeply she has bonded with the beastmen after their shared ordeal in the spirit forest. With a gentle smile, she asks her companion to stay for cake and help her restore the shop's peaceful order. Dark clouds loom as she fears the arrival of the devil will force her to seek mercenary help and expose her noble past. Though terror grips her heart, Ronia remains steadfast, knowing that the day of reckoning will eventually come. A regular named Serena raves about the delicious cake while mentioning her brother's talent for styling her hair. Serena admits her previous look was a wig and buys another treat for her brother, who is currently lost in a book. Watching her leave, Ronia sends her blessings to Serena's brother, hoping the cake brings him as much joy as the meal. The chime of the shop bell announces a new arrival, breaking the evening's quiet stillness. A winded and excited Senna-san bursts through the doors, urgently asking Ronia if she's laid eyes on a certain new book. Stunned by the jackal's uncharacteristic intensity, Ronia admits she hasn't seen the publication yet. Captivated by Senna's rare enthusiasm, Ronia vows to purchase a copy of the novel for herself. Senna blushes deeply as he reveals he fought through a crowd just to secure this special treasure for her. With a shy smile, he presents the book as a heartfelt gift, expressing his desire for her to enjoy. Ronia playfully promises to advertise the story, while Senna sheepishly admits to buying multiple copies for his own collection. Senna recounts his visit to the bookstore the previous day, driven by a sudden urge right after leaving her cafe. He confesses that while he lacks the raw strength of Shiis and the others, he possesses far more leisure time. Entering the local bookstore, Senna offers a polite greeting to the owner who is clearly used to his frequent visits. He explains that as a jackal he chose to master the power of knowledge since physical dominance was beyond his reach. The owner warns him to handle the volumes with care as Senna begins his search for a new literary escape. Discovering a new publication, Senna marvels at how Ronia's shop has successfully bridged the gap between beastmen and villagers. Overjoyed by the discovery, he purchases 3 copies and rushes home, eager to lose himself in the pages. At home, his brother Seth welcomes him back and immediately notices the new book in his exhausted hands. Desperate for a conversation about the story, Senna is frustrated that Seth has zero interest in the world of books. He realizes Ronia is the perfect confidant, remembering her past confession about being unable to read freely. Determined to make the most of her new life, he decides to gift her the book regardless of her personal taste. Ronia warmly welcomes him and prepares a café au lait, inviting him to share the story together. The pair sits in comfortable silence, the quiet café bathed in a serene glow as they share a peaceful moment. A contented Senna watches with a soft smile as Ronia becomes utterly entranced by the book he so carefully chose. Ronia and Senna discuss a book she gifted him, with Senna expressing that his positive opinion matches hers. Senna reflects on the rarity of gifting books while privately wishing for more alone time before they are interrupted. Ronia gazes warmly at her friend, her profile bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. A new customer enters the shop, claiming he heard Ronia's famous coffee could help him make progress with his heavy workload. The gentleman introduces himself as Baron Oscar Reese, despite his unassuming appearance while carrying a massive stack of papers. Ronia is honored to host the city's lord as he politely asks to occupy a spot at the counter. The Baron insists he won't be a nuisance to the afternoon regulars, graciously declining Ronia's offer to help with his heavy documents. Observing Oscar's clear exhaustion, Ronia gently suggests he get some sleep before attempting to tackle his mountain of work. Oscar laments how the wind scattered his papers everywhere, though Ronia remains firm that he needs rest more than work right now. Frustrated by the lack of a secretary, the Baron jokes about needing a fairy's help to sign the endless paperwork piling up. Taking a deep breath of the brew's rich aroma, the Baron confirms the shop's reputation is well-deserved as Ronia prepares his order. Oscar praises Ronia's kindness, mentioning that both Shiis and Senna spoke very highly of her and recommended her shop. Savoring the hot relief of the coffee, the Lord notes how the drink instantly chases away his persistent sleepiness. Seeing that Oscar has finally succumbed to his fatigue, Ronia decides to let him take a much-needed nap at the counter. Ronia notices the papers are reports on the Beastmen mercenaries and wonders what they wrote about her protecting the city. Despite her background in territory management, Ronia hesitates to read the Lord's private documents without explicit permission. Scanning the city repair reports, she feels a surge of relief upon discovering that her specific name is never mentioned. Ronia realizes that if her name were on the report, her family would have found her, just as Baron Reese begins to stir. Waking up in a daze, Oscar is reassured that he only had a short nap and finds all his documents perfectly in order. Ronia offers the departing Baron some cocoa or sweets for the road, but he politely declines while thanking her for everything. After he leaves, a chilling thought strikes Ronia. No one in town should know her family name is Gravisera. Ronia watches from the door as the Baron whistles a tune while walking away, his departure leaving her deeply unsettled. Gripped by sudden terror, she fears her family will find her if news of her whereabouts reaches her brother. She reasons that nobles rarely interact and the Baron seldom travels to the capital, making it unlikely he would recognize her face. Ronia's heart pounds against her chest as she realizes a noble opening a rural coffee shop would naturally raise suspicions. She wonders if her beastman friends know her true identity and decides she must eventually explain her situation to the Baron. As the hungry mercenaries arrive, Ronia quickly hides her anxiety and prepares to clean up the counter for them. Ronia questions the Lion Man about his relationship with the Baron, but he dismisses their conversations as merely trivial. Night falls over the quiet shop as the stars begin to twinkle in the dark sky above. Soaking in a hot bath, Ronia admits she isn't brave enough to directly ask if the Lord truly knows who she is. Ronia reflects on her desire to remain just Ronia in this town while recalling the brutal history of a neighboring country's invasion 13 years ago. She feels the heavy weight of her silence, unable to believe she is still hiding her noble past from her new friends. Staring out the window at night, she deeply questions if it is truly okay to confide her entire complicated history to them. Fear grips her as she worries they won't treat her the same if they learn she was a noble lady who fled her former life. Steeling her resolve, Ronia decides that the time has finally come to find the courage and confess the truth to her companions. Sitting alone in her cafe, she sighs nervously while pondering the best possible way to start her difficult explanation. Taking a quick break for lunch, she enjoys a bowl of katsudon to settle her nerves before the mercenaries arrive. Suddenly panicking, Ronia realizes she forgot the bacon and leaves a quick note before dashing out to the butcher shop. The local butcher jokingly warns her that the Beastmen mercenaries might go on a rampage if she doesn't find some meat for them. Relieved after securing some beef steak, she promises to return for the bacon the next morning and heads back home. While Ronia defends the mercenary's character in her mind, a sinister, mocking voice suddenly whispers that it has finally found her. A sharp gasp escapes her lips as a dark, smirking eye watches her intently from the cold shadows. Shuddering under the weight of overwhelming sinister magic, Ronia realizes the demonic threat is finally standing right before her. The devil gleefully calls her his angel, declaring that today is the day she will finally succumb to his will. Cursing her terrible luck, she wonders why this living nightmare had to begin at such a vulnerable and defenseless moment. To her absolute horror, she realizes she left her protective amethyst and summoning feather behind in her rush to go shopping. The hooded figure smiles with pure malice, embodying a symbol of doom and the very source of all evil. Obsessed and relentless, the devil boldly proclaims his intention to capture his angel once and for all. Ronia desperately flees toward her cafe, hoping the hidden magical barrier there will offer her some protection from the monster. Belzeta playfully chases her through the streets while confused neighbors call out in worry to see if she is injured. When a man tries to stop the pursuit, the devil dismisses him as a filthy thing and threatens to curse anyone who interrupts their reunion. Tears sting her eyes as Ronia realizes her mere presence in this peaceful town is putting every innocent citizen in mortal peril. Gasping for air, she reaches the shop door and prays she can call her friends for help once she gets inside. Her heart sinks as she sees her own memo still pinned to the door, confirming that her Beastman protectors haven't returned yet. Just as she reaches for safety, a cold hand violently snatches her leg and pulls her away from the door. Groceries scatter across the ground as the devil lets out a maniacal laugh at her helpless and desperate struggle. Belzeta cruelly mocks her public heartbreak and marvels that her heart hasn't darkened after being dumped by Schneider. Driven by a twisted desire to corrupt her dazzling purity, the devil vows to claim her as his own and ruin her. Ronia firmly rebuffs his disgusting advances, demanding he leave her alone even as he threatens to dye her heart pure black. As the creepy monologue continues, a concerned voice suddenly interrupts the darkness to ask the terrified Ronia if she is all right. Tumbling to the ground, Ronia sharply commands her companions to let go of her legs while calling out the perverted behavior. Gratefully thanking Shiis and reijou-wa-mattari-wo, Ronia quickly pulls out her spellbook as they pin the struggling enemy to the floor. Channeling her immense spiritual energy, Ronia begins the intricate ritual to cast a powerful sealing spell. Panicked shouts ring out to avoid the danger as the terrifying demon lashes out with its dark power. A massive explosion of white light erupts over the city, signaling the completion of Ronia's magnificent defensive magic. Checking on her stunned friends, Ronia explains she cast a protection spell just before they were hit by the devil's magic. The group realizes with a start that Ronia just performed a sealing spell that was supposed to be Grisha's job. Caught in a moment of silent realization, Ronia gasps as she considers the magnitude of the spell she just unleashed. Blushing in embarrassment, Ronia apologizes for her hasty actions while the beastmen laugh at the absurdity of her accidental sealing. Terrified that this incident revealed her location to her brother, Ronia worries that Robert will use the obsessed demon to track her down. Looking for a permanent solution, the beastmen suggest luring the demon into Grisha's existing seal for a double layer of protection. Sighing with regret, Ronia admits that double sealing is impossible with the current compatibility of the magic used. The beastmen reassure her that the demon likely sensed her previous city-saving magic and promised to handle the sealing next time. They resolve to be extra careful now that the devil has found them, acknowledging that fireballs would have destroyed the city without Ronia. Purging the lingering evil from the shop, Ronia lights a bundle of sage despite the strong and overwhelming scent. The 4 beastmen companions stand in a row, their expressions shifting as they take in the purifying aroma of the burning sage. Promising a delicious steak dinner, a cheerful Ronia notices one of her friends looking unusually pale and exhausted. Playfully offering a foot rub to their hardworking manager, the beastmen remain baffled by Ronia's strange mix of incredible strength and humility. Politely declining the awkward offer, Ronia focuses on her work while the companions joke about paw massages. The floor suddenly erupts with a glowing magic circle as the group realizes something powerful is approaching. In a flurry of sparkles, the tiny and adorable lotus spirits manifest from the magical portal. Asking for a message to be sent to Lacklane, Ronia is interrupted by the sudden appearance of another visitor. Mentioning the word demon causes the tiny lotuses to shake violently in pure, unadulterated terror. A brilliant flash of light blinds the room as the group screams in shock at the sudden intrusion. Frozen in absolute disbelief, the companions stare wide-eyed at the unexpected figure appearing in the center of the shop. A majestic spirit manifests to check on her friends, offering sage for purification while asking if the demon caused any harm. Ronia stares in awe at the powerful being, realizing this visitor is directly connected to the legendary Lord Grisha. The massive winged spirit demands to know the demon's location, only to be stunned when Ronia reveals she already sealed it. Debating whether to involve higher powers, the group wonders if they should call for Grisha to handle the sealed creature. Dismissing the idea with a gentle wave, Ronia insists they shouldn't bother the busy Lord Grisha with such matters. Battling a wave of dizziness, Ronia plans to write a letter requesting a permanent seal for the demon before its next appearance. Lackrane and his companions discuss how a certain someone would come running instantly if Ronia were ever in true danger. To Chai-san's absolute horror, Ronia casually introduces the giant Millennium Caterpillar as a friendly resident of the forest. Though Ronia wonders if her friends gathered out of worry, they quickly reassure her that everything is perfectly fine. Despite Ronia's insistence on cooking, the beastmen urge her to nap because she looks dangerously pale from exhaustion. The Great Spirit Orphidolt gently commands his human friend to rest while the loyal mercenaries stand guard nearby. Surrounded by a sea of vibrant flowers, Ronia finally surrenders to the weight of her fatigue and drifts into a dream. Shiis-san dismisses Ronia's worries about dinner, warmly encouraging her to take a nap before she starts cooking. As Ronia sinks into a peaceful sleep, her protective companions watch over her with silent, unwavering devotion. The Great Spirit Orphidolt gazes solemnly into the distance, his ethereal presence radiating ancient power and wisdom. Seeking answers, the Black Lion asks the Great Spirit exactly what kind of world Ronia is trying to escape. Orphidolt reveals Ronia fled a world of hollow, prideful people, though her troubles are unfortunately far from over. Waking with a start, Ronia fears the recent devil's attack provided the perfect trail for her brother to track her down. Preparing a secret mixture, Ronia knows her brother will flood the city with men the moment he discovers her location. To avoid detection, Ronia decides to magically alter her most recognizable feature, the silver hair she shares with her brother. Looking into the mirror with a bold, new confidence, Ronia reveals her stunning transformation into a vibrant redhead. While braiding her new locks, Ronia senses she has forgotten something important but decides to deal with it later. Stepping into the village, Ronia's new look is so convincing that even her regular customers struggle to recognize her. A delighted customer praises the bold transformation, while Ronia casually claims she just wanted a fresh change of color. Lexi screams that the new style doesn't suit her at all, demanding to know the red-headed woman's true identity. Trying to maintain her cover as Sorona-san, Ronia nearly gives away too much information about her secret identity. Watching the bustling shop, Ronia realizes she completely forgot to reveal her noble past to her Beastman mercenary friends. The atmosphere turns tense as a messenger suddenly arrives, declaring that Baron Reese demands an immediate audience with Ronia. Panic flares in Ronia's chest as she realizes the Baron must have successfully deduced her true identity during his visit. Resigning herself to the inevitable, Ronia decides to restore her silver hair before meeting the Lord of Damascus in person. Interrupting her dark thoughts, a young boy gazes up at Ronia and politely asks if he can have a piece of cake. Realizing she has a birthday reservation ready, Ronia warmly tells the child that his special treat is waiting for him. Ronia asks the boy to wait outside for his cake while her formidable Beastman guards watch over the sweet interaction. Softening her expression, Ronia looks down at the hopeful child with a gaze full of motherly warmth and kindness. The mercenaries share a rare moment of peace, smiling as they watch Ronia bring a small bit of joy to the boy. Giggling to herself, Ronia admits she feels a little jealous of the growing bond between the Beastmen and the townspeople. Sensing a shift in the atmosphere, the Beastmen wonder if they are truly becoming part of the local community. Announcing her departure, Ronia tells the gentleman she is heading out to meet with Baron Reese. Startled by a visual change, Shiis points out that something feels incredibly weird about the manager's head. Shocked by her makeover, the Beastmen question her sudden bright red hair and insist they prefer her usual look. Explaining their nature, the Beastmen mention they find hair dye restless and prefer her original color. Undoing her hair, Ronia lets her long locks flow freely to return to her true, familiar appearance. Watching her return to normal, the Beastmen find her cute while Ronia wonders if they would accept her as a Gavazila daughter. Recalling the tragedy from 13 years ago, Ronia prepares tea while worrying about how to explain her hidden past. Offering silent support, the Beastman mercenaries assure Ronia they are on her side and urge her to stay calm. Arriving for the meeting, Baron Reese asks to speak with Ronia alone while the others step away. Admitting his knowledge, the Baron explains he cannot help but mention her elite noble background. Dismissing the patrol, the Baron notes that using people is a difficult art while Ronia offers to bring food later. Entering the private quarters, Ronia prepares for a serious discussion with the Lord of Damascus. Expressing deep gratitude, Baron Reese formally thanks Ronia for the magical barrier she used to protect the residents. Surprised by his insight, Ronia wonders how he identified her since she kept her name off the official reports. Revealing the source, the Baron explains that Lord Grisha visited him to request permission to defend the city. Refusing the powerful mage's offer, the Baron admits he simply cannot afford to pay a fair fee for such magic. Filled with guilt, Ronia apologizes for causing trouble by inadvertently attracting the demon to the town. Quickly reassuring her, the Baron clarifies that he didn't call her there to demand her evacuation from the city. Valuing their presence, the Baron notes that having the Beastman mercenaries protect the town is more than enough. Beaming with joy, Ronia confirms she has been taken very good care of by her loyal Beastman friends. Boasting of their sharp senses, the Beastmen vow to call Lord Grisha the moment the demon attempts to ravage the city. Preparing to depart, the mercenaries confidently declare that bandits and demons are no issue while they are on guard. Pondering the tension, observers wonder if Baron Reese turned down the court magician because he is at odds with the king. Kneeling in prayer, a lone figure asks their father to protect Ronia and the city from the demonic threat. Surveying the ruins, the survivors witness the tragic toll of the bandit raid where many were captured or killed. Exploding in a fit of rage, Baron Reese demands to know why the royal reinforcements were so severely delayed. Demanding an immediate answer, the Baron confronts King Geoffrey directly about his apparent lack of care for the city. Resolving to move forward, the citizens declare there are no excuses and vow to do everything possible to rebuild. Shiis stares intensely, vowing to risk his life to protect Ronia and his comrades from the inevitable return of the demon Belzeta. He notes Ronia's stubborn determination to handle her burdens alone, feeling their hearts are both close and yet worlds apart. Silence hangs heavy as the warrior's piercing gaze reflects his unwavering resolve to stand by her side. Recalling their shared moments, Shiis acknowledges the hidden reasons behind Ronia's guarded nature and chooses to trust her. Emerging from the forest with a fresh kill, he tells his companions to stop dwelling on the past before they go bald from stress. Noticing Ronia's hair has returned to its natural hue, The group excitedly plans to prepare the deer for a celebratory dinner. Walking through the sun-dappled woods, Shiis expresses his firm belief that Ronia will eventually open her heart to them. The weary group arrives back at their base, greeted by a joyful girl who celebrates their successful return from the mission. Senna offers up the cafe cakes as souvenirs while his more feral companions struggle to restrain their predatory instincts. Tearing into the slightly raw deer meat, the group finds the flavor incredibly vibrant despite the simple preparation. They look forward to the dessert cakes, noting that Ronia's sophisticated cooking is far superior to their own rough campfire meals. Presenting the elegant treats to his brother, Senna kindly offers Seth the first pick of the delicious cafe pastries. The beastmen feast with wild abandon, loudly declaring that the manager's refined taste is truly second to none. They reveal the house was originally owned by a merchant before Baron Reese purchased it during a bandit raid 13 years ago. Stretching out in the quiet hall, the massive lion beastman notes how much larger the home feels without a full crew. Eager to return the favor, they plan a stylish welcome for Ronia involving the finest coffee, books, and cakes. Senna playfully suggests that Ronia would actually prefer to just spend the afternoon brushing their thick, soft fur. Golden light spills over the peaceful town as a new day dawns over the quiet streets of Damascus. Ivy clings to the stone walls of the quiet mansion, hiding the secrets kept within its ancient rooms. Dark energy pulses as pale, clawed hands tear through the fabric of reality in a desperate attempt to break free. Belzeta stretches and yawns after a deep slumber, feeling fully refreshed and ready to resume the hunt. The demon creepily wonders about Ronia's sleeping face but recoils when a powerful magical ward shocks his reaching hand. Infuriated by the constant interruptions, the small demon vows to return and make his little angel weep in despair. Schemes form in his twisted mind as he imagines entertaining ways to break the manager's spirit. Belzeta decides that his next game will involve the entire village, turning their peaceful home into a playground of chaos. Shifting to the city, Macway pays for a fresh supply of herbs while complaining about the melancholy nature of the day. He aggressively applies stinking perfumes and herbs, revealing they are components for a specialized anti-beastman amulet. The self-proclaimed beautiful girl adventurer questions Macway's motives, prompting him to confess his deep-seated fear of the mercenaries. Macway recounts how he was violently chased away from the Mattari coffee shop by a savage beastman while trying to check on Ronia. Vowing to strengthen his protective charms, the bitter adventurer declares his absolute hatred for the savage beasts protecting the shop. Paralyzed by a sudden realization, the young man stares wide-eyed as sweat beads down his face in a moment of pure shock. An angry mob gathers in the stinky city of beasts, fiercely demanding that all beastmen be driven out once and for all. Stepping into the light with her original silver hair restored, Ronia playfully asks her friends if they are truly surprised by her sudden return. Seizing a perfect opportunity, Ronia prepares to seal the demon permanently while sending a heartfelt letter of apology and gratitude to the king. Showing her usual kindness, Ronia thanks the tiny forest spirits for their hard work and rewards them with a tray of fresh cookies. Finding pure healing in the adorable sight of the spirits eating, Ronia prepares herself as the shop's doorbell finally begins to ring. Serving her customers with a warm smile, Ronia hears a patron admit that while the red hair was nice, her natural color is much more calming. A foul odor suddenly disrupts the shop's peace as a frantic mother begs Ronia for help after her son spills milk everywhere. Holding a complex magical artifact in his trembling hands, the young man confirms with determination that he has found the necessary key. Local townsfolk whisper in confusion about Ronia Macway's supposedly unnecessary actions regarding a special anti-beastman talisman that seems completely harmless. As the busy morning rush finally comes to an end, Ronia collapses onto a table and drifts into a much-needed, snoring slumber. Ronia mentally prepares herself for the day she will finally reveal her true past to the beastmen mercenaries after they finish their rounds. Startled by the sound of approaching footsteps, Ronia wonders who would travel all this way just to visit her remote shop. Spotting a familiar face, Ronia warmly asks Ramo if he has come to visit her all by himself today. Ramo explains he is standing in for a busy Lord Ronald to proceed with the promised tasting of Ronia's newest creation. Carefully following her precise recipe of 1 part liquor to 3 parts milk, Ronia skillfully mixes a creamy new concoction. After taking a slow sip, Ramo enthusiastically confirms that the prototype chocolate cocktail is absolutely delicious. Overjoyed by the positive feedback, Ronia admits she isn't making the drink for sale but as a special treat for her cherished friends. Ramo gives a gentle smile and notes that Ronia's new friends must be incredibly happy to have someone so thoughtful in their lives. Gaining a boost of confidence from Ramo's kind words, Ronia promises to let him try another variant during his next visit. Hesitantly inquiring about her brother's recent activities, Ronia learns that Lord Ronald advises against making contact just yet due to his busy schedule. Despite her deep longing to reunite with Lexi and her old circle, Ronia remembers her grandfather's warning that it won't be possible for a while. Ronia reflects on the rocky start of her relationship with Lexi, recalling a time when the prideful girl actually despised her. In a chilling memory, the queen's niece coldly declares her hatred for anyone belonging to the prestigious Gavasila family. Refusing to be intimidated by the sarcasm, Ronia firmly states she will handle her own problems without bothering those who are uncomfortable with her. Ronia admits she once looked at the world with cold eyes, never opening her heart to anyone until the people around her finally had enough. Despite their harsh beginning, Ramo reveals that Lexi now cares for Ronia more than anyone, having become the truest of friends. As Ramo departs, Ronia suddenly realizes she has used up so much liqueur that she won't have enough left for tomorrow's cakes. Ronia makes a firm habit of carrying Lacrane's summoning feather and Grisha's warning amethyst as a constant defense against lurking danger. Ensuring the magical seal is securely placed on the shop door, Ronia sets off with her basket to restock her supplies before the others arrive. Spotting a handsome man in the crowd, Ronia wonders if she is actually looking at Mr. Ryusei in his human form. To her surprise, the local girls don't flee upon seeing the Beastman mercenary jacket and instead watch him with interest. Witnessing a reverse pickup attempt, Ronia watches in shock as the girls flirtatiously approach the handsome warrior. In a bold display of affection, Ryusei pulls Ronia into his arms and calls her "sweetie" to ward off the persistent girls. Smirking at the rejected ladies, he declares he would much rather spend his time with a sweet girl like Ronia. Just as she struggles with her heavy shopping, Senna effortlessly snatches the basket away with a casual flick of his wrist. Refusing to let her carry the weight, the gentle giant insists on helping her while Ronia marvels at his keen perception. Ronia feels a pang of sadness, noting how people cruelly avoid such a kind man simply because he is a beastman. Returning to the safety of the shop, she presents a bottle of liqueur and offers to mix a celebratory cocktail. Stealing her resolve, Ronia decides that today is finally the day she will confess her hidden noble past to her friends. Suddenly, a sharp magical discharge snaps through the air, causing Ronia to recoil in immediate alarm. Her heart sinks as she senses her absolute magic barrier being violently disturbed by an aggressive intruder. Trapped in a wave of intense discomfort, she realizes that one of her specialized demon-warding barriers has been compromised. A hauntingly familiar scent drifts through the shop, signaling the return of a dark presence from her past. A harsh voice cuts through the tension, screaming at someone to stop being so incredibly stupid. Utterly confused and terrified, Ronia desperately tries to piece together the chaotic situation as the threat draws closer.